Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 149. We took last week off because of the holiday. It's too close, and it was just a busy time. So,
especially working in retail.
So we appreciate you guys joining us again. I want to thank our sponsors. We have Tinder Box at Easton, who brought this all together. We have a special guest as well tonight. Tinder Box at Easton, and by way of Crowned Heads, we have the Mil Diaz that we're going to be smoking tonight, which we're looking forward to. And again, our special guest as well. And also, Altadis USA behind us. You see Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, among other brands that they have. We've got still some samplers at Tinder Box at Easton as well. So check that out. And BS Cigar Company, I have some exciting news. As of today, the BS Gold Toro and Robusto are back. I smoked one, and it smoked beautifully. We're going to let them sit for a few days, but hopefully we can get those for sale by January 1st.
Woo!
So, BS Cigar Company, also the silver as well. And Patreon.com. I want to thank everyone that supports us through Patreon. I'm going to have maybe a giveaway for anyone listening tonight. In general, and then again, come the first of the year, we're going to be sending out some more T-shirts, hopefully in the month of January. So that'll be great. So, guys, thank you very much. There's 3 tiers: $5, $10, and $25. There's different perks to that, and we're still working with Josh from Altadis as well to do some more perks to you guys for that. Without further ado, I do want to bring on our special guest, returning guest from Crowned Heads, Miguel Schoedel.
Good afternoon or good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It is always a pleasure to be on the show, so I don't take it for granted. This is, I think, maybe my 4th or maybe 5th time on the show, and I always enjoy my time with you guys. I wish I was there in studio with you, but I'm coming remote from South Florida.
South Florida.
Oh, yeah.
We're smoking tonight the Mil Diaz, and we are so. Miguel is kind of we call him the resident rum expert. So he started this tradition quite some time ago. And he brought on rum the first time he was in the garage, the old garage. And it was funny because that's kind of carried on that we just drink rum every time.
He also brought a bottle of bourbon, but we focused on the rum.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know I posted something on the community page the other day, and because we already knew ahead of time what we were going to be drinking and smoking. So I posted about it. So that way, if listeners wanted to pick up the bottle or the cigars, they could ahead of time enjoy it with us, or at least, do it on their own time.
Oh, absolutely.
And one guy's like, "That's not a whiskey." And I was like, "Yeah, because the guest we have on is a rum guy, and it's not the
It's called
first
bourbon
time."
BS. I get it. I mean, it's called bourbon and BS. It's confusing. It's not called rum and BS.
Well,
rum is part of the BS.
But we've all had mezcal on before, so
man cannot live on bourbon alone. Man needs a variety of things in their life, and many things are bourbon. You can have bourbon vanilla, believe it or not, from Madagascar. So bourbon can mean many things. But I think what's great is sharing spirits with friends, sharing cigars with friends, and I get a kick out of it that you guys allow me to bring on rum and share my passion with you guys.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact you guys allow me to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, you send us cigars, so the least we can do is drink rum for a night, right?
I appreciate it.
All right, so we are drinking Flor Cana, which is Nicaraguan as well, right?
Yes.
And Flor Cana 12-year rum, and we'll get into that here a little bit. But let's spotlight the Mil Diaz part 2 tonight, just so you guys know, for those that are staying with us or tuning in, listening to the audio. Part 2 will be, what have we learned? I think of it like, just so you guys know, it's like kids in a class. It's like, well, what have we learned from this, children? And I think there's a great topic and a good outlook on the new year. You know what I mean? So we'll get into that part 2. But for now, Mil Diaz is a newer venture for you guys, working with Pichardo, correct?
Correct. It's a factory called Tabacalera Pichardo out of Esteli, Nicaragua.
You say it so fast, it just like rolls off the tongue.
A lot of practice.
Yeah. So tell us about it. Mil Diaz means
a thousand days. 1,000 days. So Mil Diaz is how can I describe it? The way Mil Diaz came together was very organic, very natural way. I have some very good friends, Luciano Morales, who is originally Brazilian, and I have a good friend, Iradio Pichardo, who's from Cuba originally. And some years ago, they started a factory together down in Nicaragua, and their factory has a set of beliefs, and their beliefs, a lot of that is giving back to the community. So it's not just a cigar factory, but it's really a family. They help feed the people that work there. They help with medical care. They look out for each other. It's really an amazing community that they've built at that factory. And so probably about 3 years ago, I introduced my friends, Pichardo and Luciano, to John Huber and Mike Conder, the two owners of Crown Heads.
Yeah.
And obviously, they're both in the premium cigar industry. At that time, Tobacco Lord Pichardo was not selling any cigars in the United States. Their stuff was all international, and they were manufacturing cigars for a lot of different companies. And they had given some samples to John, and John thought they were absolutely amazing. And one particular blend that he really loved, he wanted to keep focused on. So over the process of 3 years, working on helping them with their blends and them coming out with a cigar called Juarez, that's been very successful for us. We've continued to work on this blend in the background. And sometimes, you work on it, you walk away, you work on it, you walk away. And basically of 3 years of really playing around with this blend and tweaking it, ultimately came to this blend, which today is known as Mil Diaz. And the cigar is put together very unique in the sense that it's almost put together, the best way I can describe it is like a sommelier would put together something. So the Costa Rican tobacco that's in that cigar does not have a lot of flavor, but what it does is it has a tendency to really make your mouth salivate. So it's very salty in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And the best way to taste flavors, obviously, you have to salivate. So the tobacco that's in there from Peru is a very elegant, very flavorful tobacco. And the best way for you to experience that, you have to salivate quite a bit to really pick up those notes. And of course, the Nicaraguan builds out the body, the strength, the characteristics, right? So all of this together has been put together, much like a sommelier would put together a dinner and a wine for you for each complement of what you're eating. And truly, this blend from the Costa Rican that helps your palate salivate, to the Nicaraguan that's going to give you that body and that coating on your palate, to the Peruvian, which gives really the essence of the cigar and the very nice flavor notes, has really created a blend that we couldn't be more proud of. And I will tell you that in my 18 years of working in the premium cigar industry, this blend has hit my palate more than any other cigar I've had the pleasure to smoke or work on and be a part of. And so Mil Diaz, in a very short amount of time, has been selling out everywhere. It's on a ton of top 2025 lists, top 25 lists. And in a very short amount of time has been very successful. We just released a limited edition version, Moreva, which is a petite Corona, to kind of give a winter smoke, if you will, to people that are enjoying it. And the blend just came together really nice. On the logo, the M, Roman numeral, stands for 1,000. So it all kind of plays into this very organic situation and how Mil Diaz came about. And I will tell you that in a lot of shops across the country, it's sold out. Online, it's sold out a lot of places. It has been overwhelmingly successful in a time of a pandemic. We kept going forward as Crown Heads. We did not let the pandemic stop us from releasing new product. And Mil Diaz has been a very successful cigar in a very short amount of time. Medium in strength. I think it's a very full flavored cigar, but medium in strength, very elegant. And the 4 sizes we chose were very specific on the 4 sizes we chose. We felt that those 4 core sizes best displayed the flavor and really the what we wanted for the smoker to experience in that cigar.
It's awesome. Give us the breakdown of the blend again.
Yeah, absolutely. So the wrapper is Ecuador Habano. Mm-hmm. The binder is Nicaraguan. The filler is Nicaraguan, Peruvian, and Costa Rican. Comes in a Corona Gorda. Edmundo is like a Robusto, a little longer. comes in a double Robusto, which is kind of a Toro, and then the Sublime, which is just a little bit heavier, thicker cigar.
Yeah. So you got, I like the unique makeup, like Peruvian and Costa Rican. I mean, you're going to get flavors like you're talking about that you don't get on most of the shelves in a humidor, in my opinion, because you're bringing in some other aspects of the tobacco that you're able to use in a cigar that you're going to get a unique profile, which is what I like about this cigar so much. And medium bodied, you'd say, is that right?
I would say medium strength, medium to full body.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the more you get into it, the more the body, the cigar really displays the body of those tobaccos, especially the Nicaraguan, the Jalapa, the Pueblo Nuevo, the Esteli tobacco that's being used in there will definitely build up on you as you smoke the cigar.
Yeah.
But it never reaches a level of strength where it mutes out the very nuance of that Peruvian tobacco. But I do think strength-wise, medium bodied is probably the best way to describe it. And it's been really well received, and I think that the band, the packaging, the look of the cigar has almost a throwback kind of look to it. And
I love the box.
Very nice varnished box, very pretty, very, look, when you're proud of something that you create, it should always be displayed properly, and that's something that we learned from John O'Osgoner, the founder of CAO, rest in peace. Right. It was very much of, if you create something and you're proud of it, make sure that the band, the box, everything really represents what you want the smoker to experience, right? We always talk about the flavors and the taste, but we also look at it with our eyes. We also want to touch and feel. And I think a cigar should almost touch every one of your senses. And I think Mil Diaz does that and delivers on that.
No, it does. And that's a slippery slope, right? I mean, I know CAO, I don't think they really pushed it. I mean, the current CAO with re-releasing like the Vision. I mean, you guys went to the extreme back in the day. I mean, with lights and stuff on the box. You can go, I think, a little bit, not too far, but when you see some of these, like even some of like the other big boys as well, where they're doing this packaging, and you're like, so what does the actual cigar, if it came in like a bundle, what am I paying? Because I feel like I'd pay $5 less for this $30 cigar, because it comes in an individual lacquered coffin that's going to be coming in another box that's completely unique, that you had to design yourself for just this cigar. And you're like, I don't want to pay for the packaging, but I get that point, and I think it's a good point. I think you do want to have the whole package. I
think that
experience, but if you overdo the packaging, just like a bottle of booze, same thing. You put the fancy bottle there, fancy labels and all that stuff, but it's as good as the juice in there. And same thing with the tobacco. We were talking about the BS Gold is back in stock. We did something different this time. So the cigars that we smoke at the BS, like you guys smoke, you guys at Crowned Heads, you'll smoke some stuff that doesn't have the bands on it, but it's the Mil Diaz, because it's like, why are we wasting bands on stuff that we're just smoking because we enjoy it? Yeah. So we did the same thing with the BS. It's like, it all comes back to the tobacco, but I do agree that there's this overall experience to the consumer, but you better back it up. Don't have the packaging and this, like, if you're smoking something, sight should not be the number one sense that you're going for.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you can't overdo it. I think you can overdo it in almost anything, right? But I will tell you, like, getting a watch, for example, when you get a watch and it comes in a beautiful packaging, and if it's a compliment, that's what's important.
Right.
If the packaging outshines the actual product, then I think you have a problem. You have a marketing problem. And that's been done a lot of times in this industry. But what we find is always a box, a band can sell your cigar one time.
Yeah.
Great tobacco will sell your cigars for decades. And ultimately, that's what we all want. We all want a product that people can enjoy year after year after year, be consistent, be flavorful. Quality, consistency is very important, right? And I think at the end of the day, there has to be a balance. And I would say at CAO back in the day, this is pre-Ricky Rodriguez days, there were times where we pushed it a little heavy. There were times where we understated a little bit. And you kind of learn from those, and I think at Crowned Heads, for us, the cigars always come first and packagings come second. And that wasn't always the case with years at CAO back in the day.
I think it's a slippery slope. That's what I mean. I feel like, and there's, I think of Gurkha back in the day. I think they got in that slippery slope where, you're smoking a cigar. You're like, the cigar is not very good. And then the box it comes in is basically a high-end humidor. You're like, this is completely unnecessary for me to, especially if you're buying single sticks, right?
Right.
Different than the Cuban market where you basically buy boxes. You know, the American market, you buy typically either in samplers or you buy individual cigars at a shop. You don't go in you're not a box buyer every time. It's a different market. So what are you gonna say?
I was thinking, you know, like Miguel was alluding to those CAO days. I was thinking like you'd mentioned the Vision. I was also thinking the Sopranos.
Absolutely.
That was a gorgeous box. I remember
it was.
I remember the empty Sopranos boxes were going on eBay for like $20 or $40. Just the empty boxes.
Yeah.
But then you look at like the Brasilia or the Italian, it just comes in
series,
it just comes in a paper box. It's just that little
cardboard,
little paper box, and yet it's probably one of the best selling cigars that they still make.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for us at Crown Heads, when something's created, if you notice that we put a lot of work into each blend, we just don't put out 10 blends, see if one sticks. You know, we're very methodical on how things are released. Images, the look of it, the taste of it, everything has to be there for a reason. John Huber has done an excellent job at that. And I think that is what's proven the success of Crown Heads after all these years, is that people know that no matter what the band or the box, you may love the look of it, but at the end of the day, that cigar has to speak for itself. And we may make cigars that you like more than others, but I think across the board, Crown Heads doesn't make a bad cigar.
No. And you guys, you got the passion. I think you look at the lessons that you all learned from CAO and the history there. I think you know, just like everything in life, you know, and it's funny, you know, being part 2 of this episode is, you know, what have we learned? I think you guys took that. I mean, you guys really reflect on what the positives, and you find that balance there with Crowned Heads, and this no longer really new, but newer venture for you guys is you took the best ideas and you tried to run with those, and I think it shows. I really do. The Mil Diaz, it's not limited, right? This is a regular production cigar, correct?
Regular production. We're having a hard time keeping up with production, and we are one of those companies that don't look. We don't overproduce. I'm sure every company says that, but we don't. I mean, look at Le Carême. Le Carême was one of our best-selling cigars. It's been off the market for a year and a half because the broadleaf that has been available has not met our standards, right? So we won't overproduce something. And Mil Diaz, we could produce twice as much as we're producing now and sell it, but it's all about really, you know, making sure that the product meets the quality and consistency. So it is a core line. It's going to be part of our lineup forever. It is the newest family member in our. We always say that Crown Heads is the band. Each blend's an album, and I think Mil Diaz is our opus, if you will. To me, it's one of the best things we've ever done, and it will always be there. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it over the next couple of years. There's a lot of different sizes and shapes that we can play with. We think the blend really lends itself to thinner ring gauges. So there's a lot. You know, we put out that limited edition Moreva. Some of them hit the market this December. The rest will hit the market in January. That Moreva is a traditional Cuban Vitola. It's traditionally it's a Petite Corona, and I think that it really lends itself well to thinner ring gauges.
Nice. Well, Nate, what do you think?
So I smoked it again. I smoked it when the Tinder Box first got them in. Then I smoked it again yesterday and Saturday because I wanted to refamiliarize.
That's where I all went.
I wanted to refamiliarize myself.
Can you let us sell some?
I try.
Mm-hmm.
They're still a full box. Last I checked.
Yeah. That's all we have.
Yeah. No. What was kind of surprising when I first smoked it, it reminds me a little bit of a Cameroon flavor. I get this earthiness, this woodiness to it. But then, like Miguel alluded to with that Peruvian, I get like this like salted almond flavor to it.
Interesting.
I was gonna say salty nut, but let's be.
Well, I would tell you, I'm very similar. I get very walnutty, very salty, walnutty kind of flavors on the palate with this cigar, and there's a sweetness. And there's a sweetness I've had a very hard time putting my finger on, right? And as you get probably about 1/3 into the cigar, you're going to start picking up a sweetness in a cigar, and I had a very hard time putting my finger on it. And this holiday, I was able to really put it almost a marzipan-like sweetness, where it has this underlying very nutty almond kind of like flavors, where marzipan comes from is almond, and it has this little bit of almond, and it pairs up really nice with bourbons and rums and things like that. So I would agree with you, Nate.
I'm allergic to nuts, so this talk is lost on me.
Well, imagine pure deliciousness.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No. 40 years I haven't, so it's fine. But it sounds good. I mean, it sounds good. I like the flavor, so maybe that's why I'm not good at listing off flavors when people are doing that, is because I don't know what some of these things are.
I think you like the retrohale on this.
I do like the retrohale
because I think the retrohale has a lot of spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird. Like, I don't get any spice on the palate, but on the retrohale, I get tons of spice.
So Nate, we have not discussed this before the show, but one of my things with Mil Diaz is that when you smoke it, you don't get spice. But if you take it through the retrohale, you will sense the spicy characteristics of the Pueblo Nuevo and Esteli that's in that cigar, and you'll pick that up only through the retrohale. So if you're not a
pepper bomb, but
not at all. It tickles.
There's just a lot of spice there.
Yeah,
and it's nice spice. I don't get much pepper on it at all, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So why did we pick the Flor de Cana here?
Well, first of all, we've done several different rums, right? I'm a big fan of Zacapa. I'm a big fan of Diplomatico. And those rums are known for being very sweet. They're known for being very easily drinkable. And I would argue that Diplomatico and Zacapa are probably the most popular rums in the cigar industry.
I'd say you're right, yeah.
And what's unique about those rums is that if you are part of the rum world, those two rums are known for not disclosing everything they put into their rums. They're very, they don't disclose everything. And there's a wide acceptance that they do use a little bit of sugarcane. All rum is made from sugarcane, either it be molasses or sugarcane juice. But after it's been turned into alcohol and put in a bottle, that there is some sweetener added by way of pure sugarcane juice, sugar, or brown sugar.
Yeah.
To take off the edge a little bit. And that's why those two rums are very enjoyable and it's very accepted in the rum world. But if you're in any of these cigar or rum chat rooms among the purest rum drinkers out there, those two rums get very little to no respect.
Right.
One of the rums, so that's why I chose Flor de Cana tonight. Flor de Cana 12-year. This rum is made in Nicaragua. So the cigar you guys are smoking, Mil Diaz, comes from Nicaragua, and a big part of the filler of that cigar, as well as being rolled in Nicaragua. So they share the same land, right? A lot of the sugarcane comes from the same places that cigar tobacco is grown. In some instances, they're grown right next to each other. So they cohabitate with each other and share a lot of the same characteristics.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this is that Flor de Cana, the 12-year, and I think there's like an 18 and a 30-year, they are very open and they disclose everything. There's absolutely zero additives, zero sugar added after the distillation process. So this is one of those rums that are very well respected in the rum geek world, opposed to Diplomatico and Zacapa, which do have some sugar added to them.
Yeah.
And this is Flor de Cana, which absolutely has no additives to it. And the coloring is how it comes out the barrel. No sweetener. So it's very much a very pure essence of what molasses, or what we call rum industrial. It's the best kind of foot forward, the best way to display it, right? And so Flor de Cana, being a Nicaraguan, and Flor de Cana, by the way, means the flower of the cane. Cana is the cane, sugar cane. Flor is flower. And it's a rum that is, if you ever take a trip to Nicaragua, either it be with one of the cigar companies, either you're backpacking through Nicaragua, or you're on vacation, maybe in Granada down there, whatever it may be, you're going to drink a lot of Flor de Cana. Flor de Cana was founded in Nicaragua by an Italian immigrant in the late 1800s, and it is now 5th generation owned. And there's this on their website, you can see it, that out of every 10,000 family businesses that are started, only 5 last to the 5th generation. And this is one of those families that for 5 generations have kept Flor de Cana alive and thriving through civil war, through poverty, through all types of embargoes and things that Nicaragua has gone through, and they have succeeded and been very successful. So as you're enjoying your Nicaraguan cigars, as you're enjoying Nicaraguan tobacco, what better way than to enjoy a spirit that encapsulates the people of Nicaragua and the history of Nicaragua, which is Flor de Cana. And the 12-year I wanted to feature because of the price point. This will be anywhere between $30 to $40, depending on what state. It's very easily found. It's a rum that if you're bourbon people out there who say, you know what, I'm willing to dabble, I'm willing to go out of my comfort zone instead of whiskeys and bourbons, this is a great rum to try. And if you're not into the sweet rums like Diplomatico or some of the other rums, this is a great rum to start with. And
it's not as sweet. I mean, this is definitely different.
Very different.
They age it in bourbon barrels,
which that makes sense. Miguel, with the rums, I think we've talked about this before on previous episodes. The age statement on rum, it is a little different, correct?
Yes.
So when you say 12-year, if you could explain to everyone that's more familiar with bourbon or whiskeys, how does the rum world work with the age statement of 12 years? Because obviously with whiskeys, you're thinking it's a 12-year. That's got a lot of age on that.
Mm-hmm. Depending on what country, rum is a little bit of an outlaw. I think with bourbon, it's very strict. It's very controlled. There's cognacs are the same way, champagnes and things are, depending on the country. So with Nicaragua, the 12-year would traditionally be the youngest rum in this bottle would be 12-year. Other countries that say maybe 12-year, the oldest rum in that bottle would be 12-year. But traditionally, most people are going to this now. The standard now is becoming that you would put the youngest rum that you're using on the bottle as the age statement. So this rum, more than likely, this bottle contains 15, 14, 13, and 12-year-old rums.
Which is phenomenal. I mean, it's very impressive, the amount of age that comes with this.
It doesn't age like bourbon does, though.
It does not.
It doesn't have the extreme climates that make bourbon, have the characteristics that it does. Much in and out of the wood, it's much more temperate. So it's not in and out of the wood as much as a bourbon would be.
Right.
So a lot of times they age it longer, just like with Scotch.
And with Nicaragua and Guatemala and some of these countries, the rum may be distilled at sea level, and because of the heat and humidity, they would lose a tremendous amount to the angel share.
Right.
But most of these companies will age their rums up in the mountains where it's much cooler, and they lose a lot less of the angel share. So you can get some very nice, well-aged. And because where these products are coming from, price sometimes scares off bourbon drinkers. Some guys go, man, $30, that can't be any good, right? And so, but you have to take into consideration where it comes from. And rum has not been hit, like some of the bourbon market where China and these other places are in on it, which drives the prices up. Rum is not that situation. So you can still get a phenomenal bottle of rum, top-notch stuff, very affordable, between $30 to $60. You can get an amazing bottle of rum. Don't let the price deter you. It is truly a great experience to enjoy rum, finer rums. Unfortunately, a lot of people have bad experiences in college with rum, but there's a whole nother world out there that I think that many cigar smokers could really get into. And I say this every show, but if I was to take some of your listeners to Nicaragua, the Dominican, Honduras, Cuba, any of the 4 major cigar-producing countries in the world, you're not down there drinking bourbon or Scotch. You're drinking rum. And the people that are making your cigars are drinking rum. The people that are growing the tobacco are drinking rum. And so rum and cigars have been paired up longer than any other spirit. And I think culturally, if you enjoy cigars, enjoy your bourbons, your cognacs, your scotches, but always allow rum to be a part of your experience.
Well, we've talked about it before on this show when you've been on. And it's funny because depending on where you're at in the U.S., what state you're in, what they're offering as far as rum, I think I said it 2 years ago or whatever when you were on. It's like the next. I feel like the next spirit that's going to hit. Tequila's getting a resurgence. I feel like right now. Vodka had its day, right? And it was mostly kind of what you're talking about, the bad experience people have with rum. People have that where, vodka is like, it went through that flavor thing, you know what I mean? And then they tried that a little bit with whiskey and a couple others. But the bourbon boom, I feel like, is still thriving.
Yeah.
I think that the rum market is starting to grow a little bit. And it could be, I think it'll be really interesting because the last time we talked about this, we obviously didn't have the aspect of 2020. We didn't have the lockdown, the lockdown and the quarantine that's still going on across the country and the world and everything else. People are trying different spirits. They're drinking more, not necessarily. And I throw it up there a lot of the times. I'll do it right now here is, drink responsibly, which I know I've had issues with this year. And I know other people have had issues with this year because it's kind of one of those things that it's this, you don't have anything else going on. And on top of that, you have the stress and anxiety going on in the world. This is something where I think rum has an opportunity. These rum producers have an opportunity that Cuban rum is fantastic. A lot of it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. If you have your hands on some Cuban rum, I think it's some of the best in the world. I think you agree with that, Miguel. Mm-hmm. But these other companies, these other countries are able to really start pushing, depending on their business model, that the U.S. is ready for rum. And I think rum, and we talked about it before, rum has always, I feel like, in the mainstay or the mainstream of the U.S. as a mixer.
Yeah.
Rum and Coke, rum and everything. Great business model. Whiskey went through that same thing. You know what I mean? When vodka was big, 60s and everything like that, whiskey was starting to be used as a mixer, trying to sell it. That's not the case today. Now, for those of you that have not had this or don't do it, like Ryan Jones is like, Captain Morgan rum thing of the past when it comes, it's a different use. It's a different, I don't know many people that
they don't just sit there and
drink Captain Morgan neat.
Yeah. They're using it as a mixer. Just like with bourbon
or on the rocks, know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the rum has the same levels as bourbon does. You have the ones that you're, maybe on the little lower end of the scale that you're using as mixers and cocktails, but then you have the sipping versions. Same thing with tequila as well. Like you have the ones that you use as mixers, but then you have the ones that you just drink neat, maybe a couple rocks, and you just sip on it. You're not doing shots of it. You're not mixing it. You're just enjoying the flavor of that spirit.
Well, I think the U.S. is a shot culture. It has been, at least traditionally. I mean, that's just how we do it, right? You know what I mean? Like you just
go hard, go home.
Well, when we had Barry Chandler on from Stories and Sips, the Irish, we're talking about they don't shoot Jameson like we do. Like that's a shot.
Yeah.
For a lot of people here. But I think that the rums have an opportunity there. Tequila. I was talking to a friend last night. Tequila, she was saying something about like how it's like, well, I like the silver and everything. I mean, Blanco. Like, I mean, it's an education thing as far as learning what the opportunities are in each individual spirit. Because if you dive into these rabbit holes, if you will, you find that rum is not just Captain Morgan. It's not just Bacardi, regular Bacardi that, you get a handle
or spiced
of.
rum.
Spiced rum. You have this where you can get into the sipping thing. And I think bourbon and whiskey, scotch and everything else, they define themselves in more recent years, especially with like whiskeys here locally, as sippers.
Yeah.
They've educated, they've started really pushing that. And I think it's neat to see the same thing with this rum. This is something I'm interested to try, like the 18-year or whatever, to see, how much is it more complex? Is that more of a nightcap? This is something that doesn't have to be a summer day. Like, hey, what rum do you have? I want to do like a rum cocktail. Because that's why I think a lot of times with the U.S. market, especially, a lot of us will just be like, well, I drink rum on vacation.
Yeah.
I drink it with like, umbrella drinks. I drink it with the frozen drinks. It's like rum is great as a mixer because it gives that sweetness. It goes really well with some of the fruits and everything else that they're mixing it with. This is not that.
Yeah. Well,
for those that haven't tried it, this is not that. This is something that might be really good with an ice cube in it, just one cube just to kind of chill it and even like give it a little bit of water to it and everything like that. But I think this is great on its own.
Well,
for $30.
What I'd like to point out to people is that cocktail culture is huge in the rum world. Like, I can hang out with guys that drink bourbon and maybe a guy likes a bourbon and Coke, and a lot of these hardcore bourbon guys go, oh, you're killing it. You don't do that. In the rum world, it's not that way. Even the guys that are uber rum geeks.
Yeah.
We have a full collection of rum because we're big into cocktails. And that's where rum in the 50s really took hold in the US, was that the idea of having a painkiller or a zombie or a dark and stormy, any of these drinks, rum is so good mixed with fruit juices. Well, why is that? Well, look where rum and sugarcane has been produced.
Right.
Either it be in the tropical Asian areas or it be in Latin America and the Caribbean, where papaya and coconuts and guava, all these things grow. And early on in the rum world, we're talking, back in the pirate days, it was called Kill Devil. It was undrinkable. So they had to mix it with something. Right. And a gentleman by the name of Fulgencio Bacardi, who's better known today as Bacardi, he in Cuba came up with a very unique distilling way to distill his spirit. And he made a pure tasting rum that was easier on the palate, that you could drink either straight up or you can have as a mix. And since that time, late 1800s, rum has really lived in two worlds. You have the premium stuff that you sip and you have the stuff that you mix. But among me, I mean, I will tell you, when I'm in Vegas for the trade show, I go to the rum bar and I order 2 drinks. I order usually a rum neat, and then I'll order something like a zombie or a very tropical kind of rum drink. And I enjoy that rum drink with the first half of my cigar. And then my back half of the cigar, I'm sipping on that rum that's served neat. Within our world of rum, it's very acceptable to have mixers and to then have also the rum, and you can enjoy both. You can live in both worlds. Very acceptable. And I think that you hit the nail on the head, Steve, that most people that interact with rum as adults outside of college, it's usually on vacation, either in Mexico, Cancun, or wherever they're going, Puerto Rico, Dominican. That's when they meet rum, and then they go home and they go back to their regular drinks. And part of me, I've been in the cigar industry. My job is to sell cigars, but I'm very passionate about the industry. Part of my what I love and I'm passionate about is exposing people to rum and telling people it's okay. You can have a rum cocktail and also enjoy rum, on the rocks, or have it neat. You can have both and be very acceptable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. I like it. I always enjoy, I was asked that question, do you drink tequila? Yeah, I do. Like, oh, really? I thought you were all like into like the darker ones, like rum, same way. Like, you ever drink rum? I'm like, I love rum. I absolutely love rum. I think this is something that is very enjoyable. And I think that a lot of these bourbon drinkers that listen to this podcast, I think that this is something that I would put money on. I don't know what percentage. I'm not a betting person, but I put money on there that a lot of the listeners have not tried rums like this. Yeah, they haven't even dabbled it. They haven't even thought about buying a bottle of rum.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So this is great. I appreciate you suggesting this, Miguel.
Well, I think that as cigar geeks, we're all cigar geeks at the end of the day. The people in your audience, you guys, me. And I do think it's special when you do get to go to Nicaragua or one of those countries and experience the culture of cigars and the factory level. And undoubtedly, part of that is experiencing the rum world along with cigars. And I know, Steve, you've been to Cuba.
Yeah.
You could not get away from rum. Rum runs the island. And
no, you literally could not get away from. At least the group I was with, we couldn't get away from rum.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
And it's very much part of the culture. And when the great cigars of the past were being blended, the Monte Cristos, made by the Mendez family, and when you look at the original Romeo and Julieta, the H. Upmans, this is before the Fidel Castro and the revolution. All of that, these blends that were created that today are legendary names in the cigar world were blended by men who enjoyed rum, and I guess it's just, I love being able to expose that to people, and also to keep in mind, before the people in our country, the United States of America, before they were drinking bourbon, they were drinking rum in the colonies. Rum was a big part of that culture. And somehow we lost our American connection to rum. And hopefully we can take that back,
Yeah, and you're not going to replace the bourbon craze. You're just not. Now you got the whiskey local roots here, you know what I mean? So there is a bit of that. I think that we've seen in recent years there is a bit of contrary to what you see on the news all the time. I mean, there is a lot of American spirit out there, as far as, and no pun intended, there's American spirit out there that you want to support local. I mean, and I think this year has done that. And we can talk about it a little bit here in the next part of the episode, but that's part of, I think, the bourbon craze, is that it's something that's local. This is new. The wood's local. The grains are local. This is all local. This is, and the rest of the world, I think we've learned now as a culture that is drinking more whiskey, I guess, if you will, that's where you learn, as you're looking into bourbon barrels and like the virgin oak and all that stuff, is that those barrels have been shipped all over the world for a lot of different spirits.
Well, I will, and Nate had mentioned it earlier, but the rules in Kentucky is that bourbon has to be aged in a new barrel and can only be used once.
Yeah.
So what do you do with all those barrels? Well, a lot of them end up in the Caribbean and Central America, because rum is aged in bourbon barrels. It doesn't matter if it's Zacapa, Diplomatico, Bacardi, you name the rum, Flor, Cana. These rums are aged in bourbon barrels. It's really an amazing kind of unique, I think, connection to bourbon, that all these barrels, and a lot of people, I don't know, is that common knowledge in the bourbon world, but there's very strict rules that govern bourbon, and those barrels can be used one time and they get broken down and shipped to the Caribbean.
Yeah. U.S. patent law is existing because of bourbon. It is America's native spirit. People forget that. Like, it's only in America that you can make bourbon.
Yep.
So, I mean, it is our native spirit, I guess, if you want to call it that, because it has to be. This is where it started. It's the only place.
It's part of the American DNA.
Yeah, it is. You know, yes,
drinking is. You're right.
Yes, Americans were drinking rum before they were drinking bourbon, but bourbon is our native spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's more regulation on bourbon than just about anything else. I mean, there were more laws. I mean, patent laws and everything came out of bourbon, not from drugs or food or anything like that. It was bourbon that created that stuff.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, guys, what do you guys, I mean, unless there's something else we need to know about this particular rum, we've had the conversation, obviously, and anyone that hasn't met Miguel or seen Miguel on the show before, you guys still doing your own episodes and stuff like that through Crowned Heads? Are you guys still doing that?
So we took a break. So originally we did a show called Lights On, and it was about selling memberships to get samplers, and 100% of those profits went back to the retail stores. It was to help during the COVID turndown. And in February and March and April, there was definitely a turndown at the retail, and it was very scary for many of our retailers. But come late April on, the industry shot up and had record numbers of imports and sales. I can tell you that we broke last year's sales numbers. I can tell you that more cigars were imported than, because it was actually since last year, coming into the first quarter of this year, imports were down, and then it shot up. And I can tell you that there are many brick and mortar shops around the country that had record years on sales. So there was no need for that show anymore. So it was really, we'll probably do another show, but that was really about helping out the brick and mortar. But once the brick and mortar did not need that support anymore, we were there with new products and doing things to help our retailers grow their business with new products, do what we do best. And it was just it was a fun, exciting time. And at the end of the day, there is no Altadis, Crowned Heads, General Cigar, you name the brand, Espinosa, without healthy retailers, the brick and mortar. And so it was really about helping out the brick and mortar. And we were very blessed to do that program. And now that program, if it needs to be reinstated, we will. But many retailers are very happy how this year is kind of finished out. We saw many people who had to work from home who enjoyed cigars in a week and started enjoying cigars during the week. Or instead of having one cigar, they were having two cigars. They were introducing their wives or their neighbors and their friends to cigars, because your world became from this to very small, right? Into maybe your street, maybe just your neighbors. And we saw a great boom in the cigar industry. And so it was such a great thing to see for our industry to be able to survive, but also thrive during this COVID time. And look, all of our hearts go out to people that were either lost loved ones or were affected by COVID. It's a very tragic thing. That's something that our country hasn't experienced since the Spanish flu. And it was really sad. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of dust yourself off and feel blessed that we're here and that we're thriving and that we're surviving, man.
No, and I actually want to touch on that a little bit in part two as well. What have we learned? I mean, I think it's something that you guys were doing something great. I think that's part of the transition, and we'll touch on it more, like I said. But what I'm worried about is that some of those things that you were doing, the cigar industry is unique in the fact that I think that we are still trying to push the personal touch, the brick and mortars. Mm-hmm. Where what we saw now with all this stuff is, and I think it'll continue, we saw it before COVID, is that online retail was destroying the personal connection. Yep. You look back even a little bit further behind that is, department stores. You look at like the Nordstrom way, and the fact that you can go in and actually talk to someone that, mind you, is trying to make a living doing that and being someone there to help you shop and help you out. Now it's, I saw it over the years that you go into retail stores, you can't find anyone. You can't even talk to anyone. It's just, they just lay it out there. So no wonder the online stuff is something that picked up, is because the human interaction, even in person, driving to a store, you still can't talk to anyone. You're supposed to do it and shop on your own. So online retail, the only negative there was the fact that you can't touch it, you can't see it in person. You're looking at pictures. And again, online, obviously people have jobs as well doing that. But I appreciate the fact that you guys have done that and pushed that, because that is an acknowledgement that there are some things that you want to get back to that personal interaction with. And I think that's something that we were able to harness through this year, and you guys were able to harness through the online stuff. And I got to be honest, and like I said, I know I'm kind of going on that right now because we are talking about cigars mainly right now, is that this industry, the cigar industry, as soon as everyone gets busy again, this whole thing of online, the Zoom calls that turned into shows, that turned into everything else, let's stay on that, because there are still going to be people that aren't going to be going out. They're still shopping on Amazon. They got 5 packages a day coming in and all that stuff. And there's some jobs that we all know that people are talking about, that commercial real estate is going to be a shit show here coming up.
Yeah.
Buildings are going to be vacant.
Yeah. And look, I think we should feel very blessed to be in the industry that we're in, the tight knit, the family feel that it is. I like to pick a cigar like I like to pick my fruits and vegetables at the grocery store. I like to touch them. I like to see them. I want to make sure I get the right one that feels right in my hand, right? And I think that there's nothing when people who don't smoke cigars ask me, well, what's part of the attraction? I tell them, and this is a God honest truth. I say, look, you can sit on my lanai, my patio, you can have a cigar with me, and you're going to have a great time. But there is nothing like finding a tobacconist that you click with, going in, cutting a cigar, sitting down, chewing the fat, hanging out. That is a joy for me. And I say this not because I'm on your show, and you guys know I've been selling to Tinder Box for many, many years, but part of my joy is coming in Tinder Box, Columbus, sitting down, catching up with you guys, what's happening, what's going on in the world, making jokes, having a great time. There's this sense that much of that has been lost. You find that in old school barbershops. You find that in cigar shops. You don't find that in many other places anymore. And that's why they'll always have big bars, corporate owned bars, but you'll always have that local hangout spot that will never go out of business because there's a connection there. And cigars tap into the best of humanity, of us wanting to talk and get to know each other, break bread together. I get to sit there and talk with Nate and catch up with him and his wife. I get to catch up with you about you working out and staying positive. I get to see you eat a Chipotle bowl with like just chicken and cheese and nothing else on it, and
chicken and rice, but
chicken and rice, there's a sense of community that we have in the cigar industry. And once, hopefully, people, either it's the vaccine or whatever it is, that we can get back to, the brick and mortar cigar shop is part of Americana, and it is part of what makes this industry so beautiful.
Yeah, and Doug Ruffalo throws it out there. Tinderbox is not a tobacconist; they're a family, and that's what it is. I mean, that's what I like about doing this show and having you on and trying to express to people that aren't part of, like, say, the cigar culture. They're in the whiskey culture, or they're just friends of friends, and they happen to be watching the show and they enjoy part 2 or whatever, and they enjoy this part of it. But that's where it all comes from, is that community side of it.
Yeah.
That's why we started the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, Bourbon and BS community page, because it is something that's not just, and there's nothing wrong with it, but like, it's not just crotch shots of, like, bottles that you picked up. It's not just the cigar you're smoking. Those are on there too, but it is connections. And we have, like, Shannon Chapman's in the audience here in the garage. He just went out, visited family with his wife. And then there happened to be Bobby Hirschman, who is a member, and I know you know him, I think, Miguel.
Pennsylvania, baby.
Pennsylvania. So they actually linked up through the community, through the podcast, and then all of a sudden now spent the holidays with a member that he had never actually personally met. I think there is a personal connection that is lacking.
Yeah.
I think it's something lacking. I think this is something that we get into, and, like, that's part of the issue. I think that when we all went on lockdown, people were too comfortable already not seeing people. And then you saw that this is something that they needed. They needed that personal interaction, but then we got burnt out, like, even going on your computers and having that personal interaction. It's not human nature to not have human interaction.
I agree, 100%.
I mean, that's the whole socialization of when you're getting, nature versus nurture. I'm all about, like, socializing and socialization. That's how people grow.
I always talk to, people that are not in the cigar industry. And let's say I meet someone who loves bourbon, and he buys bourbon and takes it home and invites a few buddies over or his neighbor over to drink. I said, what if you could go to a liquor store, buy your favorite bourbon, and crack it open right there, grab a table, and share it with some of the guys there? Wouldn't that be awesome to be able to sit there where you bought it, share it with the guys, and talk? Oh, that would be awesome. I said, that's what the cigar lounge is. You go, you purchase a cigar.
When you leave also.
Absolutely.
I miss those days, and I can't wait for the Tinderbox to be back to that, where there's customers inside hanging out and socializing and talking. I mean, because right now, it's all business.
Yeah.
Customers come in, you do your job, you take care of the customer, but then once you take care of that customer, they're out the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't, because of where Tinderbox is, there's not the groups of people sitting there hanging out, socializing.
Yeah.
Like I always used to joke around, solving the world's problems, going home, having a drink, and forgetting how they did it.
Yeah.
Whatever order it happens,
I miss that. And I know there's a lot of people out there that miss that as well.
Yeah.
Some people are able to do it with their shop, depending on how their shop's doing things. But at the Tinderbox, that's one of the things that we definitely miss.
No, yeah, you need the separation. Anyway, all right. So before we get into this any further, like, we're getting into part 2, a little premature. Let's do this for part 1 here for those listening for the normally the whiskey and the cigar. I didn't even change it. It says whiskey, cigar, and the pairing on the screen. But the spirit, cigar, and pairing, we're going to rate it out of 10. So we've got the Flor de Cana, 12-year, and then we have the Mil Diaz from Crowned Heads, and then the pairing. Miguel, as the guest of honor, I encourage you to go first and rate each individual, the rum, the cigar, and then the pairing out of 10, 10 being the best.
So I would tell you, I think I give the rum about 8.5, which is very high on my rum scale. I think that Flor de Cana 12-year is a rum that everybody should experience, and it's very affordable. And for 8.5, I think it's fantastic. I always, Mil Diaz, people ask me all the time, what rating do I give it? I say I give it a 9.2. because I always believe that there's room for improvement. There's always room to grow. And I say this, I'm a man of faith, and please take my word. In my 18 years of being in this business, there's not a blend that I have been more proud of to be a part of and to smoke in my life. So that blend speaks to me, speaks to my palate. It just hits me on all the right places. And I'm very proud of that blend. I think the pairing together is probably about an 8.75.
Very specific. Okay. Nate?
On the rum, I'm going to be at an 8. I do enjoy it. It for me, because as Miguel alluded to early on, it doesn't have any added sugar to it. It's just distilled from molasses. And There's nothing added to it. It's not that overly sweet rum that a lot of people might be used to.
Yeah.
It drinks like a bourbon. It's got this woodiness, this vanilla to it, a little bit of like a fruit sweetness to it, but it's not, just smacking you in the palate with sweetness.
Right.
It tastes a little bit more like a corn heavy bourbon, like a 70% mash bill, but doesn't have that corn taste to it.
Corn heavy, but no corn. Got it. Go on. Yeah, that makes sense. Totally.
Some people know what I'm talking about. We didn't mention it in the state of Ohio. Florida County 12-year, 36.43 before tax. Yeah. Why 36.43 instead of like 35.99 or 36.99? I don't know. I don't set the price. Jim Canepa can answer that one.
It's like rating on a scale of 10, and you go out to the thousands.
Okay. Well, they did. Never mind.
He did 100. Yeah.
So yeah, 8 on the rum.
Yep.
I'm also an 8 on the cigar. I do enjoy the cigar.
Don't defend it.
It's very enjoyable.
Don't.
It's not my favorite Crown Heads.
Can I ask you what your favorite Crown Head is?
Well, so here when the Tinder Box got this in, and I smoked it the first time, one of the things I said was, and this is just my opinion, I wish Crown Heads spent the amount of marketing, time, and energy on the 4 Kicks Capa Especial that they did on the Mil Diaz.
I just finished one, but while we were pre-show, I was smoking a Capa Especial.
The 4 Kicks Capa Especial is probably my second favorite Crown Heads. My favorite one's the La Carême, which obviously Miguel, we joked about the last time he was on. I have more La Carême in my humidor than Crown Heads has in their warehouse. And
yes, that's true.
I have 2 cigars. I have two cigars, and that's still more than Crown Heads has in their warehouse in La Carême.
Yeah. And Lake Carême is coming back first quarter of 2021, by the way. They're in the aging room, all 4 core sizes and a limited edition size, sitting in an aging room right now, and they'll be ready first quarter.
Fantastic.
Right. So
8
and 8, but I think they pair very well together.
Yeah.
I'm closer to a 9 on the pairing.
Okay.
Because this rum because it doesn't have that sweetness that you typically expect from some rums, it does not overpower the cigar.
100%.
I think you would have to smoke a mild or medium bodied cigar with this rum.
Yeah.
If you smoke a fuller bodied cigar, it's going to overpower this.
Okay.
So the rum's a little on the lighter side. The cigar is medium body, but I think they go really well together because I think what sweetness there is on the rum brings out more of the flavor in the cigar.
Yeah.
But then the cigar adds some more notes and spice to the rum, and they blend very well together.
Got it. No, it's good. On the rum, we didn't really talk. I mean, you talked about price point. I think that is something relative, especially when we are typically a bourbon heavy type of a show. This is something this is, to put it as a frame of reference, mid 35 bucks, call it, right? You said 30 to 40, Miguel. You said 36 and some change. I think that when you're looking for a bottle of bourbon as a frame of reference, if you can find a winner at 35 bucks anymore these days, you're winning big time. And I think that's what this is. This is something that I think goes well. Have you guys had it in the audience? You guys pour any of this? Do you guys
No, I told him to go get glasses and no one did.
That's fair.
So.
Shannon, come on, Shannon.
A couple glasses for these
bartender
gentlemen. I'm gonna give this for price point included. I mean, again, I'm not expecting, like you said, 18, and there's a 20 something as well, or 30 year.
30-year-old.
So if this is like the more of the entry level or kind of mid level,
no, this is mid level.
Mid level, 7 year, right?
7 year.
Yeah. So mid level, I think for $35, I'm going to give it like 8.5 as well. I mean, this is a solid bottle of a spirit. I think it's something you probably could, like I said, throw an ice cube in there. You can drink it. I don't want to say put a Coke in it, but you can use it probably as a mixer, and it would change that cocktail big time because it's not as sweet. You could have a winner there. I think about like the difference between like an old fashioned and a Manhattan.
They recommend doing an old fashioned with this.
Well, there you go. There. So that's what I mean. Like you can do it at a cocktail. I think for $35, you're at 8.5 easy all day long with that. The Mil Diaz, here's what, when I start, and this is all through social media, when you guys released this, I saw a few people that I am linked in with on Facebook or Instagram where they were using the term game changer, and it turned me off. I don't think anymore, the amount of cigars that we all smoke, I don't know what a game changer would be. I think the last game changers that I can think of in this industry would be Liga Privada number 9 when it first came out, Opus X when it first came out.
Tatuaje, brown label.
What's that?
Brown label Tatuaje was a game changer.
Tatuaje, brown label, yeah. I think these are game changers. The Mil Diaz is it's for what you guys intended it for, being a medium strength, medium body, or however you want to classify it. It is, I wouldn't say a game changer, but when you look at the blend, you smoke it, it's different, it's unique. I would look at it as a 9. I mean, I think this cigar it's very enjoyable. The price point is nothing crazy because we're mentioning, other than the Tatuaje, but like Opus and Liga, you're going up a level.
Yeah.
As far as price point. You guys are coming in at what, like 11?
9 to 12.
Well, yeah. So I think the one that we're smoking, what size did you send us? Is the Robusto?
Edmundo, yep. The Edmundo, which is
it's 5 1/3 by 52.
Yep.
We have the double Robusto at the shop, and I think we charge $11.50 in Ohio, on our shelf with Keystone. I think this is one that it's like when on the last episode, we were drinking Basil Hayden's 10-year bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the question today from someone that was listening, and they have us on the screen at their get together tonight. They were like, so the price point, and it's like we talked about, for what you're doing with this blend, it is a knockout. If you're looking for a Ligero drip, not it. If you're looking for a mild cigar, not it. Yeah. This is a very classic, very flavorful, very complex in a sense that you get a lot of different flavors as you smoke it. That's why I give it a 9. The pairing, I think, is a 9 as well. I think this went really well together, Miguel. I think that this is something that for out the door, you get a cigar and a drink for $20, or whatever. It might be like, say, 25 at a bar or whatever.
Yep.
You can't go wrong with it. I think this is a great pairing. This is very enjoyable. It's not the sweet rum, because you talked about, Miguel, that you talk about rums, you think of sweetness, you think about like what I was talking about with the U.S. market, thinking cocktails and stuff like this. That's not it. This is not it. The no sugar added type thing, I think it's great. I think it should be labeled as a diet rum. I think it would sell better. I don't know if that's the FDA would approve that, but I mean, people drink Diet Coke all day long thinking it's good for them.
I what I love is that with this particular pairing is that unlike the Zacapa or the Diplomatico, which are two of my favorite rums, where you get a lot of the sweetness from the rum, this allows the tobacco, the natural sugars that are in the tobacco, to shine more than the sugar in the rum, right? And yeah. I like that combination. I like the combination of being able to really enjoy, right? Are you sitting down to enjoy your bourbon and have a cigar, or are you sitting down having a cigar and enjoying a bourbon or whatever it may be you're drinking, right? But I think these two pair up really well because of the lack of sugar added into Flor de Cana and the natural sugars that are natural in tobacco anyways. And I just think they pair up really well.
No, I agree completely. That's why I give it a 9. So this is something you guys can find in Ohio. We had someone ask on the podcast page or the community page, where can I find this? In Ohio, we got a great website called ohlq.com, and that is, Ohio liquor, and you can punch in what you're looking for based on spirit and name, and it'll show you based on your proximity what stores should have it based on the inventory. Not like bourbon for sure. That shit will fly. So you're usually going to be too late on the rare ones, but something like this, you punch in Florida, like Jess did that. Right?
Yeah, that's what I did. Last week I'd asked Miguel to let us know what rum he was going to be drinking, so that way I could go out and get a bottle. Because normally when our guest is on and they're in town, they bring the bottle. Obviously, Miguel is still down in Florida, so he couldn't bring us a bottle of rum.
He sent us cigars and hats.
He sent us cigars and hats. So yay, and a lighter. But yeah, so once Miguel sent me a picture of what he had picked up, I had called my wife and she was grocery shopping. I was like, cool, go right down the street to the other grocery store because there was only 4 liquor stores in the Columbus area that said they had this in stock. And one was right down the street from where she was. Yeah. It was like, go down there and pick it up. And I hope she got the right one, and she did. So, yeah. Having that website is a good resource to have.
It is. Not all states have that. So, but it is something that is accessible. Excuse me. Like I said, I think it's a great pairing. So, with that, I mean, unless you guys have anything else on the cigar or the,
I just want to say for the first part of the show, I just want to say thank you guys again for letting me bring a rum. I know it's bourbon and BS. And what I love about it is that you guys are open to other things and you allow me to come in and talk about things that I'm passionate about, crown heads and rum. So hats off to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miguel, for being a part of it. I mean, we're excited always to have you on, and hopefully we can get you back in the garage here in 2021 here on the next time you're on the show. I know this is more convenient for you. I think you're being lazy, but I mean, I'd like to see you. Yeah, you don't travel anymore.
I can't wait to get back to Ohio, brother. I love it.
Not this time of the year. It's a little cold. All right. So,
well, hey, listen, I've been in your garage where it was like below 0.
I remember. Yeah. It's not fun.
We all remember that one.
So yeah, Miguel, thank you for joining us from Crowned Heads, guys. Check out the Mil Diaz. It is available at one of our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. Obviously, we do have that in stock currently. So swing by, grab your New Year's smoke. That would be a great one for you guys if you don't know what you're doing for the night. We have the double Robusto size, I believe, and is a fantastic, like we just said. So Tinderbox at Easton, thank you very much for your sponsorship on that. And then also Altadis USA. Behind us, we have the banner. I do have some Romeo and Julieta 1875 Reserve Reals here in the garage so that we can light up afterwards. And then also BS Cigar Company. The gold is back in stock in all 3 sizes right now, especially that Robusto and the Toro. I smoked a Robusto today. It smoked beautifully, but again, we wanted to sit just for a couple more days at least and acclimate off the truck. Luckily, it came in when it wasn't as cold as it could be right now. But check that out as well. And then also patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. I've got the shirt on. I don't know if you got the shirt on. It's weird that we're doing this together, but pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. That's a saying that I came up with after drinking, and it definitely fits. And I will say, drink responsibly. That is something that I know I am not alone in the fact that after this year and going into 2021, that's something we need to do. So do it together, be responsible, and figure things out, support each other. What do you got there?
Right now, I'm smoking an Adrian Gonzalez MXS from our good friends at Tabacalera Pichardo Ace Prime.
Nice. But guys, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Happy New Year. If you're listening to the live feed, we're going to take a quick intermission. We'll stay live. And then if you're listening on the audio, on the podcast after the fact, I hope you had a good New Year. And I hope that you guys have a very prosperous 2021. And I think it's going to be good. I know it didn't work out. Everyone that said that in 2020, but I think this will age better. So guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Happy New Year. Hold your loved ones tight going into the new year.
And happy early birthday to me.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
All right, I'll let you guys do. I'm going to hit the head.
Me too. I'm going to hit the restroom. I'll be right back.
It's all you, buddy.
All right. Hey. No.
What are you doing for your birthday?
Let's see. I think my wife's working. My birthday's New Year's Eve, so tomorrow. Always there you go, Sean. Jesus. Yeah, always a party, never for me. Or at least in my adult life. Growing up, we always went bowling for my birthday. That's what I wanted to do. But no, tomorrow night, my wife and I'll do what we typically do for my birthday, and we'll go to Ocean Club at Easton, and I'll probably get a steak. I know it's Ocean Club. It's, people think a seafood restaurant. I always end up getting a steak most of the time. They have fantastic steak. But no, I mean, usually go there, either get a meal or a steak and a side, and have a cocktail or two. Hopefully this year, no one spills a drink on me. That happened 2 years ago. The hostess bumped into our table and knocked my drink into my lap. Thankfully, though, because the way I was sitting in the chair, I didn't have my feet directly underneath the chair. I had it on the outside of the legs. So as soon as the glass went over, I immediately was able to stand up, and it just, went all over the front of me. And thankfully there was no dry cleaning involved. No, I did get a free drink. Here's what I'll say about the server that we had the last 2 years. It's the same guy. I ordered a specific rye cocktail, and because it was a cocktail that won some bartender award, and it was a rye that I enjoy. It was just in a cocktail, and so I told my server, I was like, yeah, I'd like to order that cocktail. And he's like, what do you normally like to drink? I said, well, I like bourbon and rye. He goes, then don't get that. I was like, but it's rye. He goes, yeah, but I comp half the ones that people order because people that like rye can't taste the rye. I was like, oh, okay, well, let me get something else. And so he brings me both. He brings what I ordered and then what I had wanted to order. He goes, what you ordered, that's on us for spilling a drink on you. What you wanted to order originally, I'm covering that one because I at least want you to try it. Dude was spot on. I tried that rye cocktail. It was too fruity. Couldn't taste the rye to it. And my wife tried the other drink, and she didn't like it. We switched drinks, and both of us liked. She liked the one I had wanted to order because she couldn't taste the rye in it, and I liked the one I ended up getting because I could taste the bourbon in it. So yeah, we'll.
Did the guys in the audience get any rum?
Do what?
Did the guys in the audience try the rum?
Oh yeah, all three of them are trying it. Thumbs up. Thumbs up.
Fantastic. I'm like the Spanish Inquisition. I'm slowly converting people. That's my job.
No. Now I will say I still have a little bit of Diplomatico at home.
There you go. That's put that on ice cream. You can put that on ice cream. You can put that on anything.
Because my wife actually does like that. My wife doesn't typically like drinks that you can taste the alcohol in. So she's not a huge bourbon or rye fan. And she doesn't like spiced rum. But that Diplomatico, she really did enjoy. Earlier, I was thinking about the last time Miguel was in the garage, and we had some. I think it was the Diplomatico, and then I had that Cleveland rum that had the allspice in it. And Miguel, you can go back and watch that episode. Miguel takes a sip of that, and all of a sudden Miguel just goes, "Oh." Yeah, it was artificially flavored and
never good. Nope.
Just nope. Just I mean the allspice, and I mean it was like clove and licorice in there.
I like spice to my food. I'm not a spice in my liquor.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys want to jump into part 2 here?
I was just trying to kill time while you were hitting the head.
Yeah. Number 1, not number 2. I mean,
it doesn't matter. I still had to kill time.
I know. Miguel, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is Beyond the BS for episode 149, part 2. And first part, we had Miguel Schoedel on, who is still on, which we appreciate you being here, Miguel. That's where you say something.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. Look, what can I say? You guys are amazing. You're beautiful. You guys are just wonderful human beings.
All right. Thank you. Go on. But no, thank you for being here remotely. And so with part 2 tonight, we are going to be talking about what have we learned. If you guys haven't listened to part 1, we were smoking I'm still smoking the Mil Diaz, which is a newer venture for you guys with your new, I don't want to say partners, but definitely partners in a sense of success, the Pichardo factories and Ace Prime. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So you guys are killing it right now. I love the relationship you guys have. You guys are coming out with killer stuff. So listen to part 1 for the review on that, information on that Mil Diaz cigar. Also the Flor de Cana 12-year. We were drinking that. We're still sipping on that as well. We went rum tonight on the Bourbon and BS podcast. Listen to part 1 for that as well. Want to thank our sponsors again for part 2. We have patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. We have t-shirts coming back out. Tough in the holidays, but Ian, if you're still listening.
Yeah, he's still busting balls.
Ian 3X. We're going to sew a couple of them together. We'll get it out to you. But other than that, check that out. $5, $10, $25 are the tiers. It gets you t-shirts, and we are working on swag. 2021, I think, is going to be a great, great year for this show. Hesitant to say that after like everyone going into 2020, like we talked about, but I think it's gonna be good. And then also Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, and BS Cigar Company. A lot of exciting stuff coming out. All 3 of those sponsors, and all of them are kind of related as well. Tinder Box, thank you for the support and getting this all together. This is kind of where the hub is. Everything is in Columbus, Ohio. If you guys, I love the fact that like Ian, who is not in Ohio even, he shops local at Tinder Box at Easton by way of the podcast. So it's fantastic to see that love and support coming from all over the place. So do that with your local brick and mortars as well. Altadis USA, we got the Romeo Julieta Reserva Real Robusto here to light up as well after the Mil Diaz. And then BS Cigar Company, gold and silver. Golds are back in stock. As of today, we unloaded about, wasn't that much. It was like only 2,500 sticks. So we should be good for a few months. All right. So what have we learned, children? That's where I was thinking about this. Happy New Year, by the way, everyone that's tuning in on the audio. Happy New Year if you haven't heard us say it yet. I know it's cliche at this point, but what a fucking year this has been.
It's been a wild run. I mean, when you think about it, that our country hasn't experienced anything like this since the Spanish flu, which was the early 1900s. It's no one, you can't say that you know what to do in this situation. This has been a new experience for all of us around the world.
Well, and on top of that, I will say, though, what we didn't have in 1918 is Facebook or Twitter or CNN or Fox News. We didn't have that shit. So it was like, think about how that was different back then. Like literally people were like dying in the streets at that point. You know what I mean? Like that's how you knew about it, is that your local newspaper, like this many dead. Here it's, you wake up, you look at your alerts, and you're like, oh my God, they're just pumping out numbers of everything like that. Then they change it the next day, and then they change it the next day. And it's like, do this, don't do this. Wait, flip that, because it's been a week. We want to say, do this, but don't do that. And it's completely changed how the human race deals with all of this stuff, in my opinion. So there is some differences with that, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we've seen some pandemics go through. I've talked about on podcast past when this was going on. I mean, you had this in the late 60s and 70s that was going on. You had the Asian flu and then the Hong Kong flu, but no one talked about that. The media did not talk about that we had a lot of people passing away during that time, but we didn't. Again, that was a different time. It was a different time. So I don't know. What have we learned? This is something as we reflect. Normally you have the New Year's resolutions, you have the new year, new me type stuff. Not many people are talking about fitness this year.
No.
They're not talking about, I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to do all this stuff. Like, it's kind of like a moot point at this juncture of going into 2021. They're just like, I just don't want it to be like last year.
They want to see the terms and conditions before they sign on for 2021.
It's like not about you individually anymore. Like this year going into 2021, I feel like it's not about you, right? Like you can do that. I'm sure people are doing that, but if you look at social media, it isn't about like these are the improvements I want to make about me this year. It's all still big picture. It's still COVID related. It's still politically related. It's not about you, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't know if we've learned as a culture what we should have learned from what happened this last 9 months.
Well, let me say something here. A lot of people that know me, even within Crown Heads or people that I know, I think that I'm always a half glass half full kind of person. Some people tell me I'm the most positive person in the cigar industry. I think this experience, I like to think that it has made us better. I think whenever you're challenged in life, do you allow that challenge to defeat you, or do you allow that challenge to make you better? And I think that there are people in this country that are stronger than they knew they thought they were. People that have found that this isolation from that human bond has been really tough, but they've survived. People have lost loved ones, and I think at the end of the day, you have to count your blessings. You have to look at what you have, what you've been able to maintain, what you've been able to, the positive notes of life. This pandemic really, at least for me, it felt like it came out of nowhere. I was on the road traveling, and there were little rumors about what was happening. And I remember flying home thinking, I've got a couple more trips coming up, and all those trips were canceled. Within our company, we'd have these Zoom calls, and it was in a month, we'll see how it looks. In 2 months, we'll see how it looks. In 3 months, we'll see how it looks. At the end of the day, I can just tell you that the company I work for, Crown Heads, that we're closer now than we ever have been. We held a Zoom call every day. That's not always business. Sometimes we're busting chops. We're talking about what we're throwing on the grill, what we're drinking. It's been a really unique experience that it's been horrible for some people, but at the end of the day, count your blessings for what you have. And I think at the end of the day, we come out, we're strong. We live in a very politically charged world right now. Yes. But at the end of the day, are we surviving? Are we thriving? And that's really what it's about. 2020, a lot of people say it was a shitty year. It was a terrible year. But I like to think that many times we look back in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years and we say, you know what? It was bad, but I didn't let that define me. And I came out a better person. I came out in a better situation. What I thought was a curse turned into a blessing. Sometimes when something happens, it can seem like it's the end of the world or what the hell's going on. And then a year from now, you look back and say, man, that happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. And I'm better today than I have been in the past. And I think that is what you have to look forward to. That is what you have to look at and say, man, I'm gonna take these experiences. I'm gonna remember these experiences. I'm gonna remember that I came out on top.
Yeah, but I do want to interject there when you say don't let it define you. I think that there is part of a definition there. You got to accept it, right? So I know that might be a semantics thing, but I think you can let something like that define you for the moment. You have to embrace it. I feel like that was a big part of the divide, is that there were people that overly embraced what was happening, and there were other people that were absolutely rejecting what was happening and said, this is all bullshit, and this is why I think. These are like, and not necessarily just the political side of it, but it's like you have 10% over here, you have 10% over here, and you got the 80% in the middle that they're just trying to fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was constantly changing. And I think the people that are so adamant in their ways and hypocritical of their own actions as well, I feel like that they let it define them in a negative way, that they became that stereotype of, oh, so this is why you're not wearing a mask. This is why you're just going to say this is all bullshit and it's all, charged by whatever. And then there's the other people that it's like they lock themselves in their house and they never even like wanted anyone out there. and like they wouldn't even have delivery drivers out there. You know, it's like they just went the other way, and it's like there is a middle ground there that I think that we could let this define us as a 2020 experience, because that's when you truly learn, is when you embrace it, is the way I look at it. So I'm not necessarily like trying to like correct what you're saying. I just think I'm trying to put a different spin on it, is that, yeah, you don't let it define you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But you got to fucking embrace the situation at hand.
Absolutely. Well, you know,
then you're in quicksand at that point. You fall to depression, you fall to aggression as well. You fall to all these emotions that, without like embracing it and letting what's happening actually come in, then all of a sudden you don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
I kind of like what Ian Anderson just commented. Ian Anderson's a veteran, and he's like, yeah, kind of like getting blown up. It sucked, but it could have always been worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
fair.
So he's not letting what happened to him define him. He's making himself better in spite of what happened. Like, he's still pushing forward. He's not just focused on surviving. He's focusing on thriving. That's where his mindset is not just getting by, but doing better.
Right.
And, you know, with everything going on, you have a choice. You can either just, you know, sit there and stay the same, get worse, or you can actually, you know, have an inward look and be like, all right, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to make my situation better?
Yeah.
That's taking it personally, right? So that is part of it, is that, you know, you have the inner reflection. But let me ask you guys this part of it. At one point, like you brought up, and go like, we're gonna wait a month, see how this pans out. You know what I mean? Like, we saw it. It was like, hey, we're gonna lock things down, certain states and all this stuff. We're gonna do it for like 2 weeks, let this thing kind of go through it and all this stuff, and then we'll open back up. And that was like back in March, and then it's like, you know, by April, May, summertime, we're gonna be good. It's still happening. Like here in Ohio, for example, today, the 10 p.m. curfew was extended until late January, and there's people that believe in that, or believe that, you know, like we need to do that. Even with the news of the vaccine, and the news is now talking about a mutated, you know, version of this, and it's like, well, they've been talking about that for a long time, but it's like, it's I don't know if it's media driven or not, but it's one of those things. Like, did we learn anything from this? Like, I said it way back, is that I felt like, science aside, which I'm not negating COVID or anything like that, obviously. I mean, I tested positive back in early November. It's a thing. Get it. And it's tragic what's happening to the people that we've lost due to this virus. Are we going to get out of our own way at some point and say, all right, so now the vaccine's out there? Is it just the fact that people stop getting tested? Is it the fact that, you know, people are getting vaccinated and it has some success? Or is this the way that we just handle everything going forward, is that no one wants to die, and that's apparent, and I get that. But at some point, have we learned anything about this, that it's like, at some point, it's not necessarily about feelings, it's about the facts. And as you learn them, are we able to portray the facts so that everyone kind of understands this is objective and not as much subjective? And I think that was a big part of this year, is that a lot of the opinions, a lot of the actions that people were taking individually and as a society, as countries, were more started as objective, and then they became subjective. And I feel like when we got to call it August, it was like, well, I can't wait for 2021 because it's going to be like, well, it'll be a better year. It's like, this shit's not ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2 days, this is still going to be an issue. This is still going to be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, let's say, the shots that they're giving out, I mean, the reality is possibly to next summer is when they're still going to be giving out shots to people, or some people are predicting even longer, you know, and there's people that are going to want to take the shot. There's going to be people that are going to be against getting the shot. There is no right or wrong. It seems that the science community is still kind of learning how to handle this stuff and what's the right answer, and things can change. You know, Fauci is a guy, he's a human, he can mess up and he doesn't have all the right answers, and neither does anybody else. And trying to fill this out. And look, we're a big country. We are a big country with a lot of different attitudes, with a lot of different beliefs, and that's what makes up our country unique, is that we're this salad bowl of all these different cultures that are all together and trying to live and create this great American experience. And I think sometimes want a clear answer, and there aren't necessarily always clear answers to everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that if you can try to really survive within your world and, work, continue to do your job, continue to take care of your family, continue to associate with people, and you take, how can I make the best of a bad situation? It sounds so simple. It sounds so like a postcard, but that's really what everyone is kind of doing in this country, is how do we make the best out of a bad situation? And there aren't necessarily right or wrong. It's been very kind of gray area. And I'm 100% under the belief that you have to, in your own world, make the best decisions for you and your family, and make the best decisions in your life. And how do you take a bad situation and say, you know what, I'm going to do the best I can? And when people say, I look forward to 2021, it doesn't mean that January 1st, everything gets better. That's not a perfect world, right? So we may be dealing with this until summer. We may be dealing with this until spring. Who knows? We may be doing this until next December. We really don't know. But if you prepare yourself and you're mentally prepared to handle what is being thrown at you, I think you can make the best out of this situation. And what have we learned? I think we've learned that people are stronger than we thought. We as a country unified is better than being separated. And that
Do you think we are? Do you think we're more unified now over this, or do you think we're more separated?
I think there's definitely communities. I think there's so many great stories. We're so used to seeing negative, and that's what sells on the news, right? Negative, negative, negative. But when you see people out there helping their neighbors, when you see people out there shopping for their elderly neighbors because their neighbors are scared of getting COVID, when you see people taking care of each other, when people are saying, hey, you know what, you've been quarantined and I've been quarantined, let's have dinner together, let's have some interaction. Those are the things that I look at. And churches, I'm a big person in belief in God and my faith. And when you see some of these churches that have never broadcasted live on Facebook or online, and they've said, we're still going to bring the word to you and we're going to figure out a way to do it. I don't know, man. I like to think that there's so much more unity. If you watch the news, you would think the whole country is fighting and everything. But look what we're doing right now. I mean, there's so much good, but so many people want to focus on the bad. But what about all the good and the greatness that comes about in tough situations, and we're better people because of it? And I'm very conscious of that, man. I'm very conscious of how we look out over our neighbors. And I will tell you, I live in a newer community, right? We moved in here a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that this year I've gotten to know my neighbors better than I knew my neighbors in Ohio, which I lived next to for 20 years. Right. And I like to think that that is a positive that I've taken, and that there's a lot of unity going on. You won't see it on the news, but I think in our own lives, there is definitely a lot of good unity out there.
So I think that I agree with you completely. And it's funny. I think people reacted differently to being, we had, what was it? I think it was when Michael Herklotz was on, he was talking about the front porch neighbors, right? Was that that episode? Mm-hmm. Whereas you started instead of sitting in your back patio where you have this seclusion, you started sitting on your front porch, your garage, your driveway, because you just want to see a fucking car drive by and wave to them. I think it happened on a smaller thing. So I think that's a big part. I haven't been on Twitter since the election. I got sucked into it because you couldn't be out of your house in the cigar community, for example. I couldn't be out of my house in the shop, even when we were doing carry out only. You weren't just hanging around like we were talking about earlier in part one, where you could sit around, you solve the world's problems, you chop it up with some people around you. Everyone was having the same conversation. So being on the retail side, where you have these 5-minute interactions with people, that was one of the things that I struggled with this year that did beat me down, is that I would have the same conversation about whatever the fuck the news was talking about that day, whatever the current facts on COVID or the protests or the politics, whatever was happening that day, that hot topic, you'd have it 25 to 50 times, and then you'd go home, and then you would have to, I think people did that. Like, it wasn't just me. Then you have to have the conversation again, and you're just like, why can't we just, count our blessings? Like, it's let's do this. Like, good. Let's talk about it. But I found that people in general this year, and as we exit this year, it showed an ugly side of humanity again, without war, without some of the classic historical reasons for hatred towards other people. Everyone was angry. Yeah. And it's a natural thing, in my opinion. I think it's a natural thing. You get sad, you get depressed, you get angry. This is like part of how you process things. And I did the same thing. It's like some days I was like real positive, like, we got this. Like, we'll just get through today, and then we'll have tomorrow. And then other days you're like, fuck this world. Like, this is bullshit. I don't want to leave bed. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want it to be all over. And you're hopeless. I don't think that we're there yet. I think there's some people that are still stuck in March of 2020.
Yeah. I mean, when everyone was buying all the toilet paper for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is something that
like everyone was taught. When everything first started, like, getting shut down.
Yeah,
people were like, "Oh yeah, we need to do this." We got to work together. To get through this. But then they go out and they just buy all the toilet paper they can, so that way the next person can't.
No, so it wasn't just buying toilet paper. It was literally like shoving people to buy toilet paper. It was shoving people. It was projecting their opinion based on their beliefs on everyone else and just being violent. It was there was this sometimes very, very aggressive and other times very passive aggressive ways of treating other people.
Yeah.
And I think it came to a head, and I look at 2021 is, we talk about the vaccine, right? I'm worried that we as a country, let's keep it there, we haven't learned that we divided ourselves more than we have in recent years. This generation, part of the COVID experience was the fact that I think it did divide us. And I'm already prepared for, hey, did you get the vaccine? No. Did you get the vaccine? Yes. Let me guess, you voted for it. And it's like, the fucking election's over. Stop fucking talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No one's running anymore. You know what I mean? Like, but I think we're going to be in June of this year, and people are still going to be like putting up flags on who they voted for 6-7 months ago. And it's like, we didn't learn anything there. If you're thinking that way and you're relating things to what we were so in our face with this year, that if COVID happened on a non-election year, I think we would have been a better off country. I think it was poor timing. Yeah. So
I'll talk to God about that.
If you believe in God or you don't, it's just poor timing to introduce COVID-19 in an election year in the United States of America, where it basically, if you remember back to the first debate between Trump and Biden, it was like watching two Twitter feeds of like a Trump fan and a Biden fan. You're like, is this what we're dealing with as a country? It was bad.
Yep.
So I think that what you're talking about, Miguel, as far as, it brought out the good in some people, I do think that, and I am very appreciative of that. And I can think of.
Let me give you a quick example using you. There's undoubtedly a customer, maybe dozens of customers that you deal with that after a long day, a rough day, a cigar on their patio with maybe a pour of bourbon, they needed that.
Right.
And the fact that you were at the shop doing curbside service may mean very little to you. You're just doing your job. But maybe that person who picked up that bag of cigars from you, went home, needed that stress relief from a stressful day at work, stressful day dealing with the kids, maybe their wife and or their husband, whatever it may be, and they needed that cigar, right? You're just doing your job. You love these people. They're your customers. But at the end of the day in a cigar shop, your customers almost feel like family.
Yeah.
And I can attest to that in Tinder Box in Columbus. That little gesture of you still going to work, figuring out a way to get cigars to your customers, may mean very little to you. But to somebody, that could have meant to them the world, because they could sit at home on their porch and just relax and exhale. Those little things, going to the grocery store and putting someone's cart away for them, those little things, we tend to overlook the little blessings, the little things, and we want the big reward, but we don't realize that where all these little things that we do every day can really mean a lot to an individual. And I think that's where those are the things that people tend not to look upon, right? Maybe you're a supporter of whatever candidate you're supporting, and they win or loss or whatever. The truth is, we know through history that whoever's in the White House sometimes in history can mean very little to the normal American's daily life. And sometimes we put more into it than really what it is, right? And it's almost like sports, you know what I mean? Sometimes we have to remember that life goes on, that the daily life, that Trump or Biden is not going to come and pay your bills, that he's not going to come and hold your hand if you're having a rough day. Community does that. And at the end of the day, we're American. There's 3 of us on this podcast right now. And all 3 of us are vastly very different people, we're different parts of our life right now.
Right.
And yet part of what we do, someone tuning in, listening to the show, this is their escape from the daily grind. And maybe for, I don't speak for you guys, but maybe it's just part of the routine. You guys do the show, you work, you love cigars, but for somebody else, it means a lot. And those are the blessings that we tend to overlook. And sometimes those are the blessings that we should be counting every day. Well, and that's what I think is our job as just people in life, is to remind people about the crazy blessings that you may be missing every single day that are happening, but you're not seeing them.
So I think that to speak to that point, I that was something that I hope that we have learned from this year, but it's about balance, right? So there are bigger issues out there, right? And I can appreciate when it got very political, or even before that. And I mean, COVID and everything like that, you wanted to do what was best for you. And you people talked about, they want to do what's best for the society or the culture at hand, the population at hand. But going back to Nate's thing, it's like, I would say it back in April, March, April, and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, everyone says that they care about everyone else, and they fucking push an old lady to get a fucking 24-pack of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Because of like you keep saying, at the end of the day at that time was, no, it's about survival. You talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, you get to Costco, you're fucking pushing people out of the way so you can wipe your ass.
Yeah.
That was an indication at that point that people weren't really savvy to that was like, this is the reality. You talk about caring about people, you're not giving them a cut like, let's split it. I'll take 12, you take 12. Let's meet back next Tuesday. We'll do the same thing. Just, whatever. No, it's like, fuck you. Get out of my way. This is my toilet paper. Oh, they don't have any more. Like, well, I guess you should start collecting leaves. I don't know what you're going to do or whatever. Get a bidet. I don't know what you got to do. But like, it showed an ugly head while everyone felt like they were helping everyone else. And you talk about big issues. When I talk about balance, it is exactly what you're saying. Care about the big issues and really fight. If you're not an activist for it, that's okay too, because you're also trying to survive your everyday life, take care of your family, take care of yourself, because that is the basis of it. I do, you were talking about, when you meet me, it's like the focus stuff. It's like, there are times I put that where it's like, doing something that's simple and it's a metaphor, right? Like doing a shoulder workout. Broaden your shoulders so you can carry other people. It's that whole airplane thing where it's like, put your mask on before you put other people's on, because you can't help other people unless you are of the mindset and of the ability to do so. And I think that's something that was a little more apparent this year, is that there were some people that all they did was really, quote, care about it. I'm not taking it away. There's an honest, genuine care for humanity as a whole, or certain parts of humanity, or certain parts of this country or the world. But they weren't taking care of themselves, myself included. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about the interaction. You know, it's like I did appreciate having a job still because I didn't want to go on that unemployment and then figure out like the shop has to close down because we didn't survive. You know, you look at all these restaurants. That's some of the like small mom and pop organizations, whatever business industry they're in. They didn't survive.
Yeah.
They couldn't. And they could be in that business for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And all of a sudden, after all that hard work, it's like now they're looking through the classifieds, monster.com or whatever, trying to find a job. And they don't have any experience other than being a self-employed or whatever.
Yeah, look, I would say that the person, the people that are very negative, the people that are pushing the grandma out of the way for the toilet paper, I would say that person is probably not changed who they are. That didn't expose who they are. They've been that kind of person always. And it didn't matter if it was during COVID or if it was anything else during a hurricane here in Florida, we see it. Those kind of people. Look, there's a guy in Nashville, Tennessee, the home of Crown Head Cigars. For whatever reason, this guy felt like it was proper thing to do is go and blow up a block, 2nd Street in Nashville. I mean, why? You know what I mean? But those people live among us every day. The people that would push a grandma out of the way for toilet paper or food or water or whatever it may be, those people are among us. And I always think you have a choice. And Nate, maybe you can. Maybe as a fellow Christian, you can agree to this, is that you have a choice. God gives you a choice. Do you, free will? Are you going to be that person? Or are you going to be the light? Are you going to be the dark of the world? Or are you going to bring light to the world? And you have to make a personal choice are you going to be part of the dark? Or are you going to be part of the light? And in reality, I would tell everyone that it's better to be in the light than it is to be in the dark. To be that for somebody else can change the world.
Well, and to combine what you two are both talking about, it's like if you're talking about being the light to other people, it's hard to be a light to other people if you yourself are a source of darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're always a negative person, it's hard for you to be a positive influence on people.
Mm-hmm.
If you have much greater success of being a positive influence if you are a positive person, if you project this persona of being a positive person, that's going to have a greater impact on other people. We've seen it recently with Steve doing his, as he calls it, his old man walks. That was something Steve did because of personal reasons.
Yeah.
But he started doing, and that was healthy for him. For more than it wasn't because of the exercise of going on those walks.
It's helped. I lost weight.
It was, but it was also part of his mental health.
Yeah, of course.
Of going on those. And so he started doing those old man walks and posting pictures.
And they're beautiful. And
with the snow trees and the
iPhone X. Everyone, like, I don't have the new one. I mean, if anyone wants to like chip in to get me the newest one to get better pictures, I'm in.
But Patreon.
Patreon.com /iPhone 14 or whatever we're on. I don't know.
But no, Steve went on those walks to better himself.
Yep.
And after he started doing that, other people saw that and they started doing that as well. And it was having a positive influence on them.
Yeah.
But if Steve wasn't going on the walks, or if Steve was going on the walks and just not telling people about it, not posting pictures about it, then no one would have known. It would not have had an impact on anyone outside of Steve.
Let me say something on that, Nate. Going through Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is, and when you see people posting selfies of them constantly or posting pictures of their car or whatever it is, and then to run across someone like Steve who's taking a walk that we all can do, it does make you stop, and it does make you say, here's somebody who's a little bit different. He's not posting a picture of himself with his shirt off or his car or his
challenge accepted.
Leave it on. The guys will pass out.
There you go. And I that's the world we live in, man. And you can affect all of those people around you. Be someone to uplift. As silly as it sounds, Star Wars. People watch Star Wars, right? There's the light and the dark, right? The good guys always win. There's a reason why you want Luke to win. You want Baby Yoda to survive because Grogu. You want this.
Not spoilers, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. But we live in a world where there is a lot of negativity, and there are people that will knock someone over to get this or get that, or cut people off on the road. And one of my past pastors that I had back in Cincinnati, he would say sometimes when someone cuts you off, the best thing sometimes for you to do is not to react at all. That person is expecting you to flip them off or for you to speed up behind them.
That's tough. You're talking,
of course. And sometimes you have to let that calmness come over your heart and listen to that voice in your head and say, look, man, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. Maybe that's their personality. Maybe this is out of character for them. But man, at the end of the day, the fact that they need to be in front of me, is that going to affect my life in the long run? And it doesn't, man. And just trying to be, the one thing that really makes me angry about wearing a mask is that for me, sometimes smiling at people that runs up the people that ring up my groceries, or the little kid running through the grocery store lane who cuts me off, and their parents are apologizing, and sometimes just giving them a smile like, hey man, I got kids, I know how it is. I miss that. But sometimes, man, we talk about what have we learned, man. We learned is that it's tough to stay positive. It's tough to be the light. But I will tell you that being in the light, I will take over any day than being part of the dark, man.
Well, and I'm going to throw it up here. Jody just said, I miss seeing smiles here. I mentioned that. I mean, Nate, if you remember that, it was months ago. I feel like people are going to forget that part of the interaction, right? When you're among strangers smiling, and everyone learned how to smile with their eyes or whatever else. But I know firsthand of people that were that are in my life that they were even telling me that it's like they lost that sense. They were smiley people, if you will, and then they lost that. And then you hear their interactions, they became more crass, and they fell victim to what's going on here is so I don't know if we learned anything from that. I mean, it was I hope that we can bounce back, I guess, is the biggest point of that. Is that when you take the masks off, you better be looking in a mirror or realize that you're doing the resting bitch face thing all the time, even though you're smiling with your eyes and you're literally straight faced. You're like, you don't have a mask on, sir. I can see that you're not actually smiling.
Mm-hmm.
It has to come back. It really does.
We live in a world where everything is contagious, right? If you're angry and you're mad because the politics didn't go your way this year, you're mad because maybe your job is cut back hours or whatever, that affects not only you and the people around you, your family, your kids, your friends. That affects society as a whole. And again, for me, it all leads back to counting your blessings, man. If you count your blessings, there's a story, and sometimes I get biblical in these conversations that we've had in the past, and Nate, feel free to jump in. But there's a great story in the Bible, and the devil is telling basically, God, that if you take away this person's all of his blessings around his life, he's going to reject you. He's going to be mad at you. Job, and he does it, and Job is very appreciative of God and gives all the glory to God. And at the end of the day, I like to think that we need to be more like Job. We need to be more like Job. And for me, that's what helps me through this COVID world that we live in, is to be more like Job and to count your blessings. Maybe you don't have the job you had before. Maybe you don't have this or you don't have that, whatever it may be. The God honest truth is, man, is that you have more blessings than people, many countries around the world And sometimes it's you overlook those blessings, and God wants you to look at the blessings that you do have, because there are always more to come. There's always more blessings in the future, and you got to prepare to accept those blessings.
Well, and I'm going to address this because we do have someone that's commenting about, like, the religious aspect of it. I will say this as someone that used to be very active in the church, and I'm not any longer. And that's another podcast about losing faith and all that stuff. But I will say this about the Bible and everything else is that if you're not religious and you hear this type of conversation, I hope that you don't tune it out, because at the very least, if you don't have faith and all that stuff, and like I said, I lost faith a while back, and that's another podcast. Another bottle of rum, but there's lessons.
We may need to move to something stronger.
No, there's lessons to be learned. Like if you're not like that book in general is you can consider them what parables. Like, I mean, it's like there's stories. There's lessons to be learned. You know what I mean? If you're not religious, there's still value in that. Being raised in the church like I was, I learned a lot of morals, and yeah, sure, some of the stuff didn't stick, some of it did. But you learn character from stories. And I think that at the very least, if you're listening to that, I'm not pushing religion, and I don't think this podcast is. I think this is something that you can learn from that and apply to you. Like you're saying, count your blessings. Apply the knowledge. Be a sponge. It's appreciating that. You brought it up earlier, Miguel, about me just doing my job, and like Doug Ruffalo said something along the lines of my house, like people were like swinging by my house picking up cigars. I appreciated that. It's about appreciating on both sides of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just doing your job to do your job, if you're just being nice, you're just smiling to smile, just stop. Don't. It doesn't really help. Like, okay, yeah, I'm helping other people by smiling. You should appreciate it. It is a self-preservation as well there, that you need to build yourself up as well. Like I was talking about earlier with the focus and, broaden your shoulders or doing whatever it might be, wider back to carry more people. You can use this as a parable or metaphor or story to apply it to what you're struggling with. All I'm saying is I want people to be less angry. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
The biggest problem, not to belittle what happened with what's been happening with COVID, continuing to happen, and people losing their lives. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but for those that didn't and don't have it hitting them personally, stop fucking being angry at people.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest lesson of 2020 is that we're in it together, and your opinion is not always right.
Yeah.
You can have convictions in it, but at the same time, be open to other people. Fucking talk to people.
I think it's look, and
knock people down, and then you had Zoom atrophy or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like, you just got tired of being online. I got tired of being online, but I did it because it was my job.
Yeah.
That was the way to keep things going. This podcast, we kept it going throughout the entire thing, some way, doing this StreamYard, the remote stuff. It's valuable to someone.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of times is that when I didn't want to do it, when I didn't want to deal with it, when I didn't want to have that conversation with a significant other, you still do it. You roll with the punches. You do that, and you just can't let it consume you. You cannot let the anger or the anxiety or the uncertainty of what we were going through in this year be your quicksand. You cannot let it eat you up.
Yeah.
You have to lean on other people. You have to communicate. We talk about that all the time on this podcast. You have to communicate. That was active listening last episode.
Mm-hmm.
That active listening turned into, by the end of the conversation, it's not just about active listening every day. It's about also putting the information out there, hoping that someone's listening to you.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. I hope that's a lesson we learned.
Yeah, I mean, small gestures can go a long way. I wear a mask, not necessarily always for myself, but maybe for other people. Just doing simple deeds of act of kindness that may mean very little to you, but to somebody else it can mean a lot. And I think always we have especially in the social media world where it's all about me. I always call it the Kardashian effect. Is that the reality is it's not all about you, that you are but a speck on this earth, and the world does not revolve around you, and realizing that the blessing that you can bring to other people is really can help change a community, can help change your own life. Sometimes I read these stories about people that were filled with hate. Maybe they were part of a hate group and they changed their life, and they met the woman that they always wanted to meet, and they have kids, and they didn't realize that they were in this dark world. And sometimes doing good deeds for other people, being kind for other people, holding the door open for other people, you don't realize how that can affect also yourself. And not being so angry and not being so outwardly angry to other people, that sometimes that, I don't know. Sometimes you just, sometimes doing great deeds, very small deeds, like wearing a mask or something, you may not feel is important for you, but may be important for somebody else. And sometimes at the end of the day, before you go to sleep, sometimes you say, you know what, man, I try to be a good person today, and I tried to be just the right mindset, and try to spread some positiveness in the world. And if we all did that, man, we would definitely live in a very different world, man.
Well, yeah, and there's always that's the thing. It's like when you're talking about like the mask thing that we went through this year, it became polarized, just like everything else. Like you either do it or you don't. And then you have people like, I remember going into a restaurant, right? And we were sitting there, and I saw these 3 guys come in, and this dude didn't have a mask on. It was a mandate at that point in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And he's giving this hostess a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this, like, you're gonna,
it's not her fault.
No, but not only is it's just not fault. It's not even, like, not her call. So you coming in here and you berating a hostess at a restaurant that you chose to come into, like, go fucking cook for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a perfect situation.
That hostess can literally be like, you know what, you need to leave. And that person was going to like argue it. It's like, well, I don't need a mask because I don't believe in this. And it's like, cool. You also don't need to be here. Like, you chose to come here. This is the rule. It's the no shirt, no shoes, no service type thing. You're going to come in barefoot. And you're going to argue the fact that I don't need to have, it's not a law. It's like, cool. Well, it's a private establishment. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Well,
and
in the cigar shop, if we see someone going in the cigar shop and they don't wear a mask, we ask them to wear a mask, not because of our opinions on COVID. It's because that's what needs to happen in order for the shop to stay open.
Well, let me take it a step further. If it was our personal belief as a shop, then you have a choice to either shop there or not. Like, put a mask on or don't. Like, okay, like, I don't need to. It's not a law. It's like, it is within these 4 walls.
Yeah. And it's just regardless, because it's become political, and it's like, it doesn't need to be political. You know what I mean? Like, in your own house, in your backyard, on your street, you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear one. The freedom is your freedom to do so. But when it affects other people, God, it's just such a simple little gesture. You know what I mean? It's as simple as putting the cart away after you get groceries.
Right.
Do you put it away or don't you? Well, there's a teenager who's probably getting paid minimum wage who's going to have to go out there and collect them all. But you know what? Again, small blessing. Put it away. Do something nice for somebody else. You're not going to see that person, but that person's probably thinking to themselves, oh, thank God there's not 50 carts. There's only 30 out there, and 20 of them are in the car. These little things, man, it's about looking out for each other, man. It's that brotherhood. It's that we're here to do life together. And how can we do life together? How can we just be positive in each other's lives? How can we be a blessing to my neighbor? And I think about that. And again, I'm sorry, I keep always going back to religion, man. But, Jesus, said basically, do unto others as you wish for them to do unto you.
Well, and religion there, it's the golden rule. That's how
it's the golden rule, man. It's the golden rule. And I just, my wife and I, we've been very blessed. And so we try to do takeout twice a week, because we realize that out of all the businesses in the world, the restaurant and hospitality business has been affected tremendously. And so we budget that in our weekly budget to go out twice a week and get food. We get it to go and we tip. And part of that is just trying to do our part. It's very minimal, but it's trying to do our part to say, hey, we love your restaurant. We'll be back when we can to sit down and break bread together. But until then, I'm going to continue to come, and I'm going to get food to go, and I'm going to tip you, and I'm going to bring food home to my family. It's these little things that we can do to look out for each other, man. And at the end of the day, man, it feels good. It feels good to be a good person. It feels good. It's better to be, in Star Wars lingo, it's better to be Luke Skywalker than Darth Vader.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the end all be all for me is that same person that doesn't put the cart back is pissed off when there's a cart in their spot, right? And that's where they want to park, and they're like, "Oh, fucker didn't put it back," right? So then they get mad at other people, but it's like that's what you do. Like that's the whole thing. That's the flip side of the golden rule, right? So it's like do unto others that you want to treat others like you would want to be treated. Stop being a hypocrite. I will say that is one of the things that I've learned from this year is that hypocrites are rampant.
Yeah.
It's even if you do believe in throughout all this stuff, you have a certain political agenda, you have certain beliefs on COVID, you have certain beliefs on this stuff. You can literally be preaching the mask thing, and then you can be like, well, okay, have you quarantined? Are you staying in? It's like, well, no, I just took this trip and all that stuff, but I need you to wear a mask around. It's like, no, you got to be consistent. Not when it's convenient for you. Mm-hmm. That's the consistency in life, in my opinion. That's what I'm saying. Like, what have we learned is that as you come out of this year, going to the next year, COVID, say the vaccine was not just a vaccine that might work for some people. Literally, we wiped out, it took us like 80, 90 years for us to eliminate more or less polio.
Yep.
I think we can eliminate COVID in 9 months. Like, we're all delusional at this point. I know there's been a lot of advances in science, but it's like, it's not going to happen. But if you could, do you let those lessons continue on in other aspects of your life? The things we were talking about earlier, when everyone was going online and doing all this stuff, there's less people doing it. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, oh, it really helped out. Things were really successful and people really enjoyed it. But I got busy. I'm not doing it anymore. You know what I mean? You talk about the podcast. It's one of those things that, like, you talk to anyone that has a successful podcast. One of the things that I researched is that you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You just keep going every time. You don't want to do it that week, but it's a weekly podcast. You do it. It'll go through the ebbs and flows of anything. And that's just anything in life. The way you treat people, it's not always going to make you feel good. Sometimes you do it and you feel unappreciated.
That's Miguel and I actually touched on that right before we started the podcast when you were still inside. Because Miguel had asked how long you've been doing this. This is episode 149. Do it once a week, but there's only been 3 weeks in the entire time that we've taken off. Yeah. They've all ironically been this year, but they've all been for very different reasons. One was because there was a huge snowstorm that came through, and it was just unsafe for us to travel to Steve's garage and back home.
The remote thing too.
Yeah, that was back in February, so that was before everything got shut down. It was just a bad snowstorm. I mean, you can't really plan for that ahead of time. Now we have the ability.
Weather people. I mean,
now we have. They're still 50-50. Now we have the ability to where if something like that happens, we can still produce an episode.
Yeah,
because of things we've learned from this year. You had one for personal reasons, which is totally acceptable for anyone who knows you. Completely understandable.
If you don't know me, I mean, it's acceptable.
Yeah. So we are still human beings and we still go through shit. Sometimes life happens, and sometimes those things in life that happen are more important than the podcast.
Yeah.
They're higher
can take
priority.
A personal day from work. All right.
They are a higher priority.
And look,
and then we had last week where it was 2 days before Christmas. Steve, you work at a retail store. That is your livelihood.
Right.
That is your primary job. For me, it's a second job. It's not my primary job. It's not my main source of income and how I provide for my family. It is how you provide for you. So that was a day, though, because of the season, because of how busy it is, you needed, you had to be at work, but it's still something that, we still do even when we don't want to, because, it's for the better. Like, we're still doing a product because it's what we want to do. Sometimes life happens.
Yeah. Well, so it goes back to the consistency. Miguel's talking about like putting the shopping carts back, right? So you just do it every time, right? So you're not looking for a thank you. You're not looking for that. This is just what you do. And I think that is something, like I said, all right. So going back to what have we learned? What I've learned is that we still have a lot to learn as a culture. Let's keep it just within the country. I think we have a lot to learn as a culture. I think we lost some of the people that I know. This is local, it's personal life, it's even you see on like TV and stuff like that. The people that say they care so much about other people don't treat people the way that they say they care about other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's inconsistent. And one of the things that we've tried to do with this podcast, with people, and I know the people that are on this and people that are listening, is that there is a lot of value. You're talking about that, Miguel, is that there's a lot of value to treat your inner circle and your local circle well, right? Doesn't matter, what your views on COVID, doesn't matter what your views were on the protest, doesn't matter what your views are on the election, whatever happened in 2020, you still treat people the way you treat people.
Yeah.
You treat them with love. You treat them like I've been posting that a lot lately, is that, love unconditionally. It's okay to not agree with someone. It's okay not to be best friends with that person. It's okay to actually keep them at an arm's length. Don't be a dick.
Yeah. And that's a lesson.
That was my whole thing, is that when people were talking about all the things going on in this year, and it's like the way they were treating people, it's like the whole thing. And you saw all this stuff, especially in the summertime, right? Where it's like, oh, this is Trump's America. This is an asshole. And I'm like, that guy was an asshole in Obama's America. He's going to be an asshole in Trump's America. He's old enough to be an asshole in Bush's America. The guy's just a fucking asshole. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter who president is. Doesn't matter who the governor is. Doesn't matter like what's going on his Sunday. He's just a bitter person that treats people like shit. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have a camera phone videotaping everything and putting it on social media 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now we have it.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, whether there's a Republican, a Democrat, whether there's COVID going on or everyone's healthy and like we have a utopia, assholes are going to be assholes.
Yeah. And good people can fall into that as well. I find myself sometimes on social media getting in conversations politically or whatever, and you make statements or you post things that are out of character. And sometimes you go, oh, why did I say that? Or I should have bit my tongue. Or the fact is I agree with you, man. Steve, you make so many great points, man, and hopefully we as a people can continue to get better. At the founding of our country, the idea was to create a more perfect union, right? That was the founding fathers, and we're not there. Who knows if we'll ever get there? But as long as we keep trying to make a more perfect union, and we're gonna have hiccups, we're gonna make mistakes. Positive people will make bad mistakes. Bad people will sometimes do good things. At the end of the day, man, just know that you want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Well, you got to keep putting the effort in, right?
Yep.
And like you said, good people. Like I know, for example, myself and other people I know, you try to do everything this last year for other people. You try to like survive. You be those broad shoulders. You try to carry people through it, and you lose yourself sometimes. You know what I mean? Because you are always trying to be selfless. You're trying to do that. It's better than being selfish all the time, but sometimes people that are selfish all the times, they will succeed, right? Because that's just their mantra is like me first, then everyone else. That's very valuable in a lot of cases. If you put everyone else first all the time and not yourself, you will lose yourself. You're going to be broken down. You cannot help other people. And I think, again, lessons learned and have we learned anything? Again, it's always balance. Yep. It's always self-reflection. It's always talking to people. It's always communication. These are the things we talk about on this podcast a lot, is that, self-reflection, it's communication and balance. Mm-hmm. We didn't have that as a world or in my opinion, as a society or culture, and especially in this country, we didn't have that mentality of balance. We didn't have that mentality of helping other people and also looking after yourself.
Yeah.
You picked one.
Yeah.
And that's how you lived your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still going on. And that's what I hope. Have we learned anything? It's the balance. Like, you got to take care of your home first, yourself, and then also fight for whatever you feel is right in the bigger picture. But if all you're doing is fighting for the bigger picture, you lost your home life, you lost yourself, you lost everything else. If all you're doing is looking after yourself, you lost the big picture, you lost your home life. You can't just single in. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons I think that we need to learn from this year, is that you have to consistently be on a pivot of all aspects of what life is. You can't just pick one item on a ballot. You can't pick one item on your Twitter feed. You can't pick one thing, and this is your life now.
Yep.
Because when that falls off, what's your next thing? That's that instant gratification. I can only focus on one thing at a time, and everything else around it can fall apart. But as long as this works, now it's working.
Yeah.
Now, what do I do with my life? I got to find the next cause.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the cause is yourself.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this is the type of question that you can have every year, even a year that doesn't have a pandemic or an election. Like, what did you learn from this year? Just like if you take a college course or something, you have a final exam at the end of the year. All right, what'd you learn during that course? Every course is going to teach you something. What did you learn from it? So, I mean, outside of COVID, since that seems to have dominated the conversation over the course of the year,
Dominated the year.
It did.
It still is.
But there are still things that you can that people learned about themselves outside of that.
Yeah, no, and there's no wrong answer there, right? There's no right answer. It's just that's how we all went to that. I don't know. All right, so we can keep dancing around all this stuff. Miguel, what have you learned from this year? Let's do that.
Well, I think that I've learned that being there for my family, I'm a person that travels 5-6 days a week usually. I'm on the road constantly promoting Crown Heads, the cigars, doing events, sometimes going out of the country to promote the brand. And I'm home very little, sometimes a day, sometimes 3 days a week. I mean, it's and knowing that I've been home constantly since March, knowing that I can be there for my family, that I can function within my family, how they, they've functioned without me for 18 years, being home very little, and being able to immerse myself into that world and to be a positive effect on my family on a daily basis, my kids and my wife, knowing that I have the ability to do that. That's a big thing for me, thinking to myself, hey man, one day if I ever get a job where I'm home every day, will that hurt the relationship with my wife? Will my kids be annoyed that I'm around all the time? Because for the longer than their lives, I've never been home that much. And I've learned that being positive, staying positive in a very negative situation sometimes can be very tough, either it be on social media or dealing in public or whatever it may be. Knowing that you're strong enough to be able to work through those situations and come out and say, you know what, I made a mistake today. I said something I shouldn't have said. I've done something I shouldn't have done. And knowing that that's not the end of the world, that tomorrow's a new day. And it's so funny, me looking at, I love history, American history, and I love presidential history, and knowing that, the president, however the presidential election turns out, that my life will continue to go on, and that not being too wrapped up in that situation, allowing it to play out, and knowing that that this country is bigger than one person who's our president. Reagan, when Reagan became president, Democrats were upset and said the country's gonna end with this guy. He's gonna destroy the middle class, and then Obama's gonna take away our guns, and Trump is gonna destroy the country. Knowing that at the end of the day, those people on a daily basis of my life have very little effect on my daily, everyday life. And knowing that regardless of how it turns out, my life will continue on, my family's life will continue on, and that that I can wake up the next day knowing that I live in the greatest country in the world, and I'm blessed to have the people I have in my life and the customers that I have in my life, and that that every day counting the small blessings sometimes are bigger than having one big blessing.
I love that. It's great perspective. What about you, Nate?
It kind of reminds me of something that came up at Christmas at my mom's family. Thanksgiving, we didn't do what my family normally does and go around the table saying what they're thankful for. So this year at Christmas, my grandmother had us go around and say what family means to them, or what they learned about family during this year. And for me personally, it highlighted the importance of who is in your circle, who's in your house, who are your close friends. It highlighted that. I had to work from home. I still have to work from home during all this. My wife had to work from home, although, at the beginning of this month, my wife started a new job. So that's a positive for her in this year. A lot of people, like I said the other day at the shop, there's a lot of people that look on the year and all they see is negative. Yet there's something that me or my wife can actually look on the year and see something positive. But when we were working from home, both of us, there were times when it first started and we didn't know how long we were going to be working from home, that we were both working from home in the same room. And we were still having conversations that, a lot of times prior to what had happened during the year, there are a lot of times where both of us are at work and then I go and I do my other job. By the time I get home, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, just tired, want to relax, and then go to bed. There wasn't a whole lot of time that we spent together talking about stuff, stuff. But because of the situation that happened this year, we were able to communicate more and talk about more things, and we were able to share more things together while all this was going on. So it may have sucked for a lot of people, but I look at it as there were blessings to it because it made us closer.
Good.
Because the conversations we were able to have, because of our like-mindedness and interest, we grew together, and that may not have happened if something like that. We were still fine prior to this. Everything was fine. There was no issues in our home, but it allowed us the opportunity to grow closer. Good. And we could have sat there and just gotten tired of each other and hated working in the same room and hated seeing each other every hour of the day.
Yeah.
But we took the opportunity, and we talked about that either earlier this month or last month about opportunity. We took the opportunity to make the best of the situation. Yeah. And that's something that is something that I learned, about this year, spending more time together, doing more things together and strengthening us, not just strengthening me, strengthening us. Because if the two of us are better, I'm going to be better. She's going to be better individually. And then together we're going to be stronger.
Good.
Absolutely.
So
I figure this might be a little tough.
No, not at all. I think this, again, what I learned this year. So what have we learned? It showed, I think this year showed some true colors in people and people in general, not just individuals, but I think it showed, it either reinforced or it exposed new light on how people treat people. This was a very polarized year. Like the issues were polarized. It was in your face. I don't think that the human race has seen this type of in your face on a global scale due to social media and due to the information being at your fingertips.
Do you think social media helped or hurt?
Both. It served the purpose that you wanted it to serve. That's what I think.
So perspective. However your perspective was.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I think that when you're posting political stuff on your Facebook feed, which should be your friends and family, you've lost it. All right. So like you've already gone. I'm not saying you're wrong. You can be right doing it, but if you're projecting your COVID views, you're projecting your protest views, you're projecting your political views and everything in between or intertwined on a Facebook feed, which is supposed to be for your family and friends, if you will, you've gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost your sense of what you're doing. And on top of that, unless you're out there and being an activist, all you're doing is being a Monday morning armchair quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying how things should be and not doing anything about it. if you're doing the things like you were talking about, Miguel, and you're doing the things in your more immediate circle, you're actually treating people the way you want to treat them and the way you want to be treated, then you're good.
Mm-hmm.
If all you do is preach about equality and taking care of other people, or you're preaching your gun rights, you're projecting your whatever the issue might be, because I'm trying to think of the ones that were brought up tonight, and you're doing it on a social media feed, but then all you do is you sit there and be quiet in real life, you're worthless. You're not doing anything. Not worthless. I don't want to be that negative.
I know what you mean.
You're not doing anything other than bitching. Do something about it. Treat people the way you want to treat people. And that's the local level thing. And then also go on the bigger scale, right? But do something about it. And I think that's the opportunity that we had this year with an election, big election. But I also saw that we oversimplified things based on the way that we treated this year. And I do not fault anyone, because no one alive today knows how to deal with what happened this year.
Yep.
There's no playbook for this, right? Mm-hmm. So you treat people a certain way, and you say one thing, you do something else. That's fine. That happens. But I got to tell you, I truly think that we lost respect for the common man. Mm-hmm. That's what the lesson that I hope we learned, because again, no war this year that we're talking about, right? In the news, there's no war. Mm-hmm. This is all internal.
Yeah.
It ate away at us as a world, as a country, as a world from the inside. This has proven to me that this is the most effective way of, like, biological weapons, actual nuclear weapons, terrorism, everything else. This is how you win. Mm-hmm. You fuck with people.
Yeah.
You turn them on themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's
what happened this year. Not intentionally. I'm not saying, again, COVID was, created in a lab, all that bullshit. I'm saying this is the playbook. If you want to destroy a world, an economy, a country, a town, we knew this already. You have them turn on themselves. That's what happened, in my opinion. So the lesson learned there is that, what did I learn? Is you're not a right or left. You're not a Republican. You're not a Democrat. You're not a mask versus no mask. This doesn't define you as a person, and we allowed that to happen. If you voted for one individual, I already know you as a person. You're garbage. That doesn't exist. That's not how this works. There are so many moving parts, and you don't know me as a person. I don't know you as a person. So there was a time where you didn't talk about who you voted for.
Right.
And it wasn't because you danced around it. You didn't want to offend anyone. That was part of it. But there's a part that it's like, you're a real person. And I got to tell you, I know plenty of people that voted one way when they were 20. They voted a different way when they were 30. When they were 60, they voted a different way. And there's other people that did it throughout, and they didn't like who they were voting for. But we let ourselves be defined by a viewpoint on one issue. And if you oversimplify the human being in general, the human mind in general, based on one issue, you lost yourself, in my opinion, as how you interact with people.
Yeah.
Because we saw that if you have a certain bumper sticker on your car, I already know how I'm going to treat you. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that is how you treat people.
Right.
As soon as we stop having disagreements about something, we stop growing. And the other thing that I will say, lessons learned, what have I learned, is that you need to surround yourself with people that you can have conversations with. You can ask questions. This whole word vomit bullshit that's going on Twitter and everything else in the world right now, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to stop in 2021. I think that in 2021, you need to be able to say, when I say, hey, what has happened based on this? I'm not trying to prove a point. Stop being in an argument. I'm asking a question. Tell me, educate me from your viewpoint. What do I need to know so that then I can take your input and make my own opinion?
Yeah.
And if we disagree and never talk again, fine. If we disagree and we can actually agree to disagree, cool. if you actually can educate me and I reflect on that and I look at that and I say, it's a really good point I didn't think of.
Yeah.
That's a good angle I didn't think of.
Yeah.
Those conversations were few and far between, in my opinion, in 2020 that need to happen further and more going forward. Is that you actually have a fucking conversation.
I would say that to build on what you're saying there is, if you surround yourself by people that all believe or think like you, that's an echo chamber that you're never going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ian Anderson actually said those exact words earlier.
Yeah, I think it's important to have friends that are conservatives, that are liberals, that are Muslim, that are Christian, that are agnostic. I think it's important to have friends of all different backgrounds. And as I think it was, who said this? That travel is probably one of the best things you can do that really prevents kind of racism and discrimination, is you're able to travel and meet with people and meet different cultures, and it makes us better people. And I'm proud to say I have friends that of all political walks of life, and they have made me a better person. I've met people that voted for Trump who I absolutely adore. There are people that have voted for Biden that I absolutely adore. And knowing that makes me, I think, a better person inside for myself, not for other people, but for myself, knowing that I can appreciate people for more than just who they're voting for, or, whatever their religion is, that I can try to look past. And that's something that we should always train ourselves to be, is to get to know the person, to have these conversations. And I think they make us a better person. And, knowing Nate all these years, getting to know you, Steve, all these years, it just makes me a better person. We have 3 different walks of life, and the fact that we can come together and smoke a cigar, drink bourbon or drink rum, and just talk about life experiences, and knowing that maybe who we vote for or what church we go to on Sunday can be different. Man, I think that's powerful. And I think sometimes the people that want to divide us, that's what scares them the most.
Here's a saying, Miguel. When you have a conversation with someone and they ask you your opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had this happen when the response is, you would say that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not constructive.
Not constructive at all.
And there's no openness there.
None. They've already shut the door.
Yeah. So when you ask a question, they ask you a question, or like, what do you think about this? Or they're trying to project on you, not project, but they're being honest, right? Let's keep it innocent here. They're doing that, and you give a response, and their response then is, I thought you'd say that, or you would say that.
Mm-hmm.
That is not an open conversation any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is something that, what have we learned, is don't say that.
Yeah.
Listen, communicate, because no one is an expert. And even the people that are experts in certain fields
get it wrong.
One thing that I've learned, not everyone trusts it.
Yeah.
Like you brought up Fauci and all that stuff this year. And maybe it's just because, at my age, he's been in office, or he's been in that position for a very, very long time. This is one of those years that anytime he said something, I agree with him, I'm going to follow what he says, or he would say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not like, if you're not going to listen to the experts, like how many years of medical school did you go to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how many books have you read?
At the end of the man, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and and the President Trump, even if you love President Trump, he's made a lot of mistakes. If you love Obama, he made a lot of mistakes. Fauci, all the education in the world, he's made mistakes, right? If you look at these people and you expect them to be absolutely perfect 100% of the time, that's not humanly possible. And I think understanding and taking that into consideration and saying, you know what, I'm going to do the best that I can with the information that I have, and being open to that. I mean, we all make mistakes. I try to be a very positive person, but sometimes I get baited into conversations, especially online. Sometimes you have to step back and just say, man, I've got to be a better person. I got to respond better. I got to be better. And that's just as part of life, you know what I mean? Looking out for each other, even pulling a friend aside and go, hey man, the way you've been acting, or something you said the other day, or something you posted isn't you, man. Are you okay? the fact is that we live in an imperfect world with imperfect people. Don't be surprised when people are imperfect. You know what I mean? But if you can try to,
I love that.
If you can take those lessons and try to make yourself a better person every day, that at the end of the day is what's important. And sometimes, Steve, I mean, sometimes when a door closes in life, it could be career, it could be relationship, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are many more doors that are meant to be open, and sometimes doors closed are supposed to be closed. In the future, there's something out there, and you just have to sometimes put it out there and live and just deal with it, man.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I mean, this has been a for a lot of people, this has been a, like you said, like shitty year, and some people it's been a good year. I mean, it is perspective, like you brought up, Nate. It's something that it's not over.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not going to reset in 2 days.
Luckily for those of us, that are going to live on for another 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever, it's not over. And I think that sometimes you do feel like, the hands in your face and this is all you can see. And it's depression. It's anxiety. It's, I don't know how to deal with today. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Embrace that feeling.
Yeah. And understand it, Yeah. And understand where that's coming from and learning to deal with it. And, for me to sum everything up, man, is, to take those experiences internal, deal with them, and try to be a light in somebody's life. And I think if you do that, there's a lot more positive that will come your way in life. If you surround yourself around people that want the best for you and want to see you succeed, and you want to help other people, doing simple things, making your bed, putting the card away, opening a door for somebody, even like you said earlier, Steve, sometimes it goes without people seeing it. Just put that positive energy out there, man, and either it be God or maybe it be just the way, whatever you have in your life. There's more to come, and 2020 is all but a year. And you think about how long this earth has been around. We have a lot more brighter days ahead of us.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a great way to end it. I mean, honestly, Miguel, I appreciate your positivity. I appreciate your outlook. Nate, you as well. I was looking forward to 2020, and honestly, there were a lot of good things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of. You want to say something? We got Sean here in the audience. Yeah, will you?
Yeah.
Click him on.
It will be as soon as you pick it up.
You were clicked on, right?
There's no blue. Did you cover the blue?
Yeah, cover the blue. Blue just means it has
Go ahead.
power.
This is Sean, who's been on the podcast before. He's been in the audience all night.
Hey guys, I just wanted to go off of what Miguel said earlier about just how you can approach in today's life and how things are. I lost my job in a 30-year career due to COVID. I took a pretty big pay cut and started working at Amazon. And the one thing that I've always done every day before I go to work, I just have a quick prayer on the way to work and just say, use me any way you can, just to put a smile on somebody's face, brighten their day. And it's kind of cool how I don't even think about doing it, but I just kind of consciously say a quick prayer about it in the morning. And then throughout the day, I've developed a lot of friendships just by going out of my way to maybe help them with something or make them smile or do something goofy or whatever. And that helps me get through each day too, to just to see somebody smile. And one thing about Amazon, it's a melting pot. There's every race, religion you could imagine. And I've befriended a lot of different people and just to learn their culture and become really close with them through over the past few months. It's just been very rewarding for me.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. I got to go ahead, Nate.
You touched on something that I'd kind of alluded to in part of the conversation in the comments and stuff back and forth. Like your religious beliefs, like that's what gets you through. That's what helps you. That's not everybody. Like you don't have to be a religious person to be a good person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are. You can still be a good freaking person.
Yep.
So it's not like Miguel or Sean with what he just said. It's not like they're preaching to anybody. No. That's who you are. That's who Miguel is. that is you. You can't separate the two. That's you. That's what helps you. It may not work for someone else. That's you.
Right.
That's what helps you. If it helps you be a better person, fantastic.
That's you. That's what I'm trying to say. I was trying to say it's you.
You know why I'm saying that, so fuck off.
Got to find your why. You guys got,
There
yeah, there you go. I didn't want to interject. Find your why, right? I mean, this is it. So, yeah. So let's leave it at this. So, what have we learned? We're not perfect. Summary, right? We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. Some big, some small. Some you can't come back from. Some you can. But whether you have lost people through all this year, literally lost people, and you're still here, it's going to make you stronger. And you take what you learned from that person.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose people that are still here, but they're, you couldn't make it through all this shit, don't be mad.
Yeah.
Don't be mad at yourself. You can beat yourself up. You can beat that person up. You can do whatever you want to do as far as, being angry, going through the emotions, going through grieving process. But, what have we learned is that we got another year. Those of us that are still on this earth, we have another year that's starting. We all go by calendars for convenience sake. But you have another day. You got to just keep grinding, keep going forward, keep loving people unconditionally. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Put your mask on before you put other masks on. All that good stuff. These are all sayings that we've done. But I will say, find the balance. Don't be selfish. Don't be selfless. All these things. You gotta just learn something from this year. I mean, if you are literally ringing in the new year and you look back at 2020 and you're like, yeah, it was a shitty year. It's like, what the fuck did you learn?
Yeah.
Like, take something from this.
And you're
a bad year. Take something from it.
And everybody's bad year could be a different year. Someone could lose their mother and father 10 years ago, and that could have been a worse year than 2020.
Right.
The year for me, 2007, 2008, when I had a brain tumor, that was a much worse year for me than 2020. Everybody, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, man.
No, I agree. So with that,
it took us that long for Miguel to mention his brain tumor.
Every time. I enjoy the podcast. I know so we had a couple people actually, comment on religion. That's the thing about talking about this stuff is that, again, that's why I tried to address it. It's not, no one's trying to preach. No one's an expert. This is the Beyond the BS. The part twos are always conversation. For some people, it's therapy sessions. For some people, it's like, this is what it is about, like cigars and whiskey and good people. It's life. And this whole new year, new me, all this stuff, do that too. Because I think that is lost this year going into it, is that there are less New Year's resolutions for self-improvement because people are still lost in the shuffle of what the fuck did we just go through.
And to compliment on that, people always have this New Year's resolution to go to the gym and get physically more healthy. And maybe this is the year where it's not about the gym, but it's about you being mentally more healthy.
No, that's a great point.
I think a better person.
More important this year.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people, some very, very close to me, that the mental health was struggling.
Yep.
And I keep bringing up the idea of quicksand. The biggest thing about quicksand is that you have to have people around you that you can reach out, and you got to take hold of that hand that is trying to get you out of that quicksand. Because if you reject that, you're going down.
Yep.
And you're not going to come out. You're not going to feel good. You're going to everything's going to change. So, guys, I mean, there's a lot of positivity. And Miguel, I appreciate your positive attitude. I don't want to end it on a negative note. I think that, going into 2021, we did it in 2020. Everyone was really optimistic, and then it changed for a lot of people, most people, and everyone kind of got negative. Everyone got depressed, and we're about to go into January, February, and we're in the Midwest, Miguel. So seasonal depression is a thing.
Yeah.
And I do worry about everyone out there that listens to this podcast. All I want to do is follow the community page, reach out to your family, your loved ones. I've been posting a lot this last December here. as we're in the holidays, appreciate it. Hold your loved ones tight. And if you like, I think I've talked to my mom this December more than I have in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know she does. So don't take the people around you for granted that they want to help you, but you don't want to talk to them. Reach out if you're having issues. And if you're happy, reach out.
Yeah.
Keep the love going. So, guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Happy New Year. Miguel, thank you very much.
Happy Rum Wednesday.
Thank you, guys. And here's to a very prosperous, loving, and successful 2021.
Cheers.